Chapter 877. The next day, Chen Tingfang woke up at dawn. Seeing the young man holding her in his arms, she felt the sweetness of her first love, but also a sense of guilt. The man in front of her was really good-looking, beautiful and delicious. She couldn't help but caress his handsome face and trace the perfect shape of his lips with her finger. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and sucked on her finger. When he opened his eyes, there was still a sense of confusion unique to the morning. "Good morning, baby." He gently bit her finger and hugged her in his arms contentedly. He buried his head between her soft breasts and rubbed it comfortably. Chen Tingfang blushed and rubbed his hair. Her voice was indescribably gentle. "Let go of me. I want to go back. I'm not letting go. I want to hug you like this forever." He pouted and tightened his arms around her. His furry head rubbed against her restlessly and his two legs overlapped with hers, as if he could prevent her from running away. It turned out that a man was so cute when he acted coquettishly. She couldn't help but laugh. Even the guilt in her heart disappeared. She patted his back gently and coaxed him gently. "Stop fooling around. You know my family's situation. You don't want to make things difficult for me, right? When it's convenient for me, I'll come and see you, okay? You said it. If you go back on your words, you're a dog." He bit her chest hard and then looked up. His eyes were sparkling as he smiled proudly. "If I leave my mark, you'll be mine. Naughty little rascal." She held his cheeks with both hands and bit his lips in revenge. The two of them were lovey-dovey for a while and almost burned again. Fortunately, Chen Tingfang still had some sense. She pushed away the man who was making a fuss about eating meat and tidied herself up. She planned to go home while it was still early so that they wouldn't be seen by others. Shaoihan was topless with a towel wrapped around his waist. He was extremely gentle and considerate as he sent her to the door. Chen Tingfang gave him a goodbye kiss under his resentful gaze and then got into her car. She didn't expect Ji Yuqi, who had a habit of jogging in the morning, to come. Ji Yuqi came back from her morning run and bumped into Chen Tingfang coming out of the car. She saw that her skin was rosy and there was a smile in the corner of her eyes, like a withered tree in spring. Ji Yuqi curled her lips and stared meaningfully at Chen Tingfang's neck. She could vaguely see a few hickeys. Oh, this old woman's integrity had long been thrown into the Pacific Ocean. She was of course guilty. "Chen." She covered it up, she smiled and said, Yuqi, you're training so early." "Of." Ji Yuqi's smile widened. "Yes, Auntie Chen. You're quite early too." These words didn't sound right at all. Chen Tingfang smiled. "I was playing cards with my friends last night. It was too late, so I stayed there for the night. I was afraid that you guys would be worried, so I rushed back early in the morning." Ji Yuqi nodded. "I understand. It's a good thing that Aunt Shen has a good relationship with your friends. I'm sweating all over and feeling uncomfortable. I'm going upstairs to take a shower." "Okay, go ahead. Be careful not to catch a cold." Chen Tingfang smiled kindly and sighed secretly. Ji Bowen's business trip this time was overseas and would take more than 10 days. It was convenient for Chen Tingfang. She would find an excuse to go out every day and hang out with Shaoihan. Shaoihan had just had sex and was very enthusiastic about sex. After all, she was old and couldn't take it after fooling around for a few days. Shaoihan naturally felt sorry for her and hugged her in his arms. The two of them covered themselves with the quilt and chatted. Chen Tingfang saw his tolerance and consideration in her eyes, and her heart was indescribably touched. If the first time she rolled in the bed with him was mixed with the element of desire, then now, she had already fallen in love with him. Her relationship with Shaoihan had also developed rapidly in the past 10 days. It felt like one day apart felt like 3 years. Compared to her comfort, Yi Zhisu didn't have a good time. Yi Zhisu and Jiang Tianhao went back to their hometown. In a remote mountain village, they brought Jiang Tianhao's mother and her mother-in-law, Yu Xiu, to the city. Yu Xiu was a few years older than Chen Tingfang, but judging from her appearance, she was almost 20 years older than her. Yu Xiu was used to living in the countryside and wore old-fashioned clothes. Her white hair was tied up with a rubber band. When she smiled, her face was full of wrinkles. When she didn't smile, she gave people a gloomy feeling. That night, Yi Zixu lay in Jiang Tianhao's arms. Her fingers wandered around his chest and she said softly, "Hubby, tomorrow I want to take mother-in-law to buy some clothes and change her hairstyle. Otherwise, if that old woman walked out, wouldn't it be embarrassing for her? Okay, you arrange it. I trust your taste." Jiang Tianhao kissed her cheek and his hands began to play naughty. The husband and wife were about to do something that husband and wife should do when suddenly, a hoarse and unpleasant voice came from outside the bedroom door. "Tianhao, Tianhao, quickly come out and help me take a look." "Wait for me, I'll be right back." Jiang Tianhao kissed Yi Zixu's face hard. He rolled over and quickly put on his coat. "Mom, what's wrong?" He closed the bedroom door and asked Yu Xiu, who was standing at the door. Yu Xiu said, "The air conditioner is on all night. It's a waste of electricity. Help me turn it off." Jiang Tianhao was helpless. "Mom, our family doesn't lack money now. If we don't turn on the air conditioner at night, it'll be very hot. You won't be comfortable sleeping." Yu Xiu grabbed his arm and dragged him into her room. She chattered, "What's uncomfortable? I've lived in the countryside for so many years. I didn't even use an electric fan, but I still got through it. You young people only know how to enjoy life. Besides, it's easy to catch a cold if you're exposed to the air conditioner all night. You guys should stop blowing it off. Hurry up and turn it off." Jiang Tianhao was already used to her nagging. He smiled good-naturedly. Okay, I'll listen to you. We'll turn it off in a bit." As he spoke, he picked up the remote control and turned off the air conditioner in her room. "Mom, it's getting late. You should rest early." "Wait, talk to me." Yu Xiu grabbed his arm and pulled him to sit beside her. She asked with a serious face, "I was the last to know about your marriage." "That's fine. But tell me, why did you marry the daughter of your enemy? The last time I attended your wedding, I couldn't wait to rush in front of Ji Bowen and give him a few tight slaps." Jiang Tianhao said helplessly, "Mom, how many times have I told you? Zixu isn't Ji Bowen's biological daughter. Besides, don't you understand why I married her? It's because I want to enter the Ji group smoothly. Even if she isn't Ji Bowen's biological daughter, Ji Bowen won't mistreat her. Of course, he won't mistreat her son-in-law either. Don't forget about the blood feud between our family and theirs. Don't be so lovey-dovey with her every day. The beauty's village is the hero's mound. I think she's not a good person with that vixen look of hers." The mother and son chatted very softly, but their voices could still be heard through the small gap in the door to the corridor outside. Yi Zixu was holding a thin blanket in her arms. She was planning to give it to Yu Xiu. Her fingers gripped the blanket tightly as if she wanted to tear it to shreds. Her beautiful face was contorted with anger. She was so silly and naive. She had planned to forgive Jiang Tianhao once and get along with his mother. She hadn't expected that the mother and son would see her this way. The anger in her heart had reached its peak and was about to drive Yi Zixu crazy. When she heard that the people inside were about to end their conversation, she finally regained a bit of her rationality. She hugged the blanket, lightened her footsteps, and quickly returned to the bedroom. When Jiang Tianhao returned, Yi Zixu was taking a shower in the bathroom. The sound of water splashing could be heard, and her graceful figure was imprinted on the glass door. It was very seductive. His eyes darkened and he knocked on the bathroom door. His voice was hoarse. "Honey, why are you taking a shower now?" Yi Zixu's hair was wet and clung tightly to her naked back. Her tears were like broken beads, falling down continuously. They mixed with the water droplets on her face, and it was hard to tell whether they were tears or water. Hearing no answer, Jiang Tianhao knocked on the door again. "Honey, are you okay?" Yi Zhisu bit her fist and tried to answer in a calm voice. I'm fine. The sound of the water is too loud. I can't hear clearly. Let me go out first. When she came out, it was already 10 minutes later. Her eyes were slightly red from crying, but under the dim light, it wasn't too obvious. She was wrapped in a bath towel, like a mermaid coming out of the bath. She was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. Although Jiang Tianhao no longer loved her, he was still very interested in her body. He pulled her into his arms and pulled off the bath towel on her body. She whispered, "You're so annoying. My hair is still wet. I'll help you dry it." Jiang Tianhao pinched her softness a few times and said in a hoarse voice. When they first fell in love, he was also so gentle to her. After she washed her hair, he would dry it for her. Watching her long hair slide between his fingers, there was an indescribable sweetness. Now, he would occasionally dry her hair for her, but there was no longer the love she was familiar with in his eyes. There was only lust left. Yi Zhisu had been with him for a long time, so she knew very well how to tease him. When her hair was half dry, the two were already hugging each other and rolling on the boat. He covered her body, sweating like rain. When he was aroused, he would say, "I love you." However, she would never believe it again. She knew that it was just a man's way of coaxing women. Even when they were hugging each other and climbing to the peak, her eyes were cold. Her long nails left scars on his back. Her heart was already full of holes. "Jiang Tianhao, from now on, we are husband and wife. Since you don't have true feelings, I won't give my true feelings. You're not the only one who knows how to play with feelings. I'm also very good at it." The torture had just begun. Yi Zhisu could feign civility with Jiang Tianhao, but in front of Yu Xiu, her little tricks were not enough. Granny was the most ferocious creature in the world. The old woman pointed at the wet floor and nagged, "Zhisu, why don't you know how to do anything? You can't even mop the floor clean. Why did our Jiang Tianhao marry you?" Yi Zhisu gritted her teeth and endured, "Mom, don't be angry. I'll mop it again." The old woman sat at the dining table and shouted, "Yi Zhisu, how did you cook this food? The rice is burnt, there are still eggshells in the scrambled eggs, and you forgot to put salt in the fish soup. Is this even fit for human consumption?" Yi Zhisu continued to endure, "Mom, it's my first time cooking. I'm not very skilled. Let's order takeout." The old woman pointed at the clothes in the washing machine and shouted, "Daughter-in-law, these underwear should be washed by hand. You put them together. It's so messy. It's so unhygienic. Aren't you, miss? Don't you know this?" Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 878. Yi Zhisu felt like she was going to suffer from internal injuries. She squeezed out a few words from between her teeth. "We used to have servants at home. I took them out to wash." "Humph, now that you're married, do you still think you're miss from a wealthy family? Since you've married into our family, you'll have to serve Tianhao and me well." The old witch left her with a sinister tone. Then, she went out to dance with the old couple she had just met. The room was quiet. Yi Zhisu squatted in the bathroom and used both hands to wash her underwear. After scrubbing for a long time, her hands turned red. She angrily threw her clothes into the basin and kicked it over. She held her head with both hands and screamed uncontrollably. Why? Why did she, the great miss from a wealthy family, have to put up with that old witch? She had enough. She angrily packed her luggage and planned to return to her parents' home. After she got into the car, she dialed a number with trembling fingers. The moment the call went through, she burst into tears. "Mom, I can't take it anymore. Jiang Tianhao's mother is a monster. I hate her. I hate her to death." At this moment, Chen Tingfang was having sex with Xiao Yihan. She was a little unhappy that the warm atmosphere was interrupted. She said calmly, "I've told you before that you're not in the same class as them. There will be a difference between you and them. You didn't listen. Great, now my words have come true. Mom, I was wrong. I shouldn't have disobeyed you. Boo-hoo, I don't want to stay in the same room with that old witch for a moment. I want to go home and stay for a few days. Chen Tingfang was agitated. She sat up from Xiao Yihan's arms. Please don't. You've only been married for a short time. You're not giving Jiang Tianhao any face. What will he think of you? He'll stand on his mother's side. Be smart and pull him to your side. In the future, with him mediating between you and your mother, your life will be better. Mom, I don't want to live with him anymore. I want a divorce. Yi Zixu was feeling wronged and angry at the same time. She didn't care about anything else and shouted out such a sentence. Chen Tingfang frowned. Zixu, don't be so willful. You've been married for less than 2 months and you want a divorce. What will others think of you? Marriage is not a relationship. When 2 people form a family, there will definitely be a lot of conflicts. Is it something a mature person should say when they want a divorce just because of a small problem? Mom. Yi Zixu felt wronged. She cried even more sadly and regretted it even more. She blamed herself for not listening to her mother. Now, she had no way to vent her grievances. Okay, be good. Chen Tingfang's tone was much gentler. She coaxed, say a few words to your mother-in-law and coax her. Which daughter-in-law doesn't do this? As long as your husband loves you, it's better than anything else. Listen to me and don't throw a tantrum anymore. She gently comforted Yi Zixu for more than 10 minutes before she came to her senses. Her mother was right. Her reputation was very bad now. If she divorced Jiang Tianhao because of family differences, she would be laughed at to death. That damned old woman was super good at acting. She always took advantage of Tianhao's absence to torture her. When Tianhao came back, he saw how considerate his mother-in-law was to his daughter-in-law. That was why Tianhao stood on the old woman's side and completely ignored her occasional complaints. If he saw his mother bullying her, he would help her for the sake of the Ji family. Yi Zixu thought of this and snorted coldly. At the next intersection, she turned the car around. She didn't believe that she couldn't win against a damned old woman. Honey, you're back. Jiang Tianhao opened the door and saw Yi Zixu wearing an apron and holding a spatula. She was waiting at the door with a smile on her face. He was shocked and frowned. Honey, I thought you didn't know how to cook. Why are you dressed like this? Yi Zixu hurriedly hid the spatula behind her back and giggled. I think Granny is right. As a woman, how can I not know how to cook? That's why I've been learning for the whole day. I definitely won't disappoint you later. Honey, you must have worked hard all day. I've already prepared the hot water for you. When you're done, we'll have dinner. Before Jiang Tianhao could say anything, she had already snatched the briefcase from his hand and pushed him to the bathroom door. I've already prepared the clothes for you. Honey, is there anything else you need? Gentle and considerate, she was a perfect wife. However, Jiang Tianhao didn't feel happy at all. Instead, he had a strange feeling in his heart. He knew Yi Zixu. She was definitely not a housewife. What was going on? How did she become like this? Jiang Tianhao walked into the bathroom with doubts. The towel and clothes were neatly folded. The hot water in the bathtub was steaming. The smooth floor could almost reflect a person's figure. He couldn't believe that this was all thanks to Yi Zixu. Did the sun rise from the west? Just as he was about to take off his clothes, he suddenly heard Yi Zixu scream. Then, with a bang, something fell on the floor. Jiang Tianhao frowned. He knew that nothing good would come out of her cooking. He tidied up his clothes, opened the door, and was about to go to the kitchen to see what had happened when he heard his mother scolding. Clumsy. You can't even do such a simple thing. Hurry up. Tianhao will eat after his bath. Don't starve him. Jiang Tianhao's eyebrows jumped. He was worried that Yi Zixu's daughter, Miss, had a temper. He didn't expect her to say softly, I'm sorry, mother-in-law. I didn't do it on purpose. I'll get it done right away. Don't be angry. I've never seen someone as stupid as you. I'm ashamed to say that you're my daughter-in-law. Yushio began to nag at Izisu again. She thought that her son was taking a bath in the bathroom and couldn't hear her, so she lowered her voice slightly. Unexpectedly, she heard footsteps behind her. Jiang Tianhao stood behind her with a sullen face. She quickly changed her expression and said with a smile, "Zisu, why didn't you be careful? Did you burn your hand? Let me take a look." When Zisu was cooking, oil accidentally splashed on the back of her hand, and then she dropped the spatula. After being scolded, her eyes only reddened, but she didn't look unhappy. When she heard Yushio's words, she quickly smiled and said, "It's okay. I was just scalded by the oil. It doesn't hurt anymore." After saying that, she seemed to have just seen Jiang Tianhao standing behind Yushio. She said in surprise, "Oh, hubby, you're done showering so quickly." Jiang Tianhao's face was gloomy. He looked at the guilty Yushio, and then at Zisu, who was pretending that nothing had happened. He said in a displeased tone, "Mom, is this how you've been treating Zisu for the past few days?" Yushio looked down awkwardly. Before she could speak, Zisu had already said, "Hubby, don't misunderstand. Mother-in-law is doing this for my own good. Also, I don't want to be a rice worm who doesn't know anything. I want to take good care of you with all my heart." A complicated emotion flashed past Jiang Tianhao's eyes. His thin lips tightened and he said in a deep voice, "Give me your hand. Let me see." Zisu retracted her hand behind her back and avoided his gaze. "I already said that it's okay. Hubby, you and mother-in-law can go out. The smell of smoke in the kitchen is too strong. There's only one dish left. Once it's done, we'll eat immediately." Jiang Tianhao didn't listen to her. Instead, he walked closer and grabbed her hand that was hidden behind her back. There were 2 blisters on the back of her white hand, and her fingers were also cut, leaving several bloody marks. He suppressed his anger and glared at her. "Is this what you mean by okay? It's really okay. It's just a small wound. It'll be fine soon." Zisu smiled sweetly. "Hubby, are you feeling sorry for me? I'm so happy." Jiang Tianhao's chest tightened and he stiffly said, "Silly." Then he grabbed her wrist and dragged her out of the kitchen as he said, "Mom, I'll have to trouble you to stir-fry the remaining dish. Zisu's wound needs to be applied." Zisu hurriedly turned around and smiled, "Sorry to trouble you, mother-in-law." Yushio waited for the 2 of them to walk away before she fiercely spat and scolded in a low voice, "Tui, little vixen." In the master bedroom, Jiang Tianhao carefully disinfected Zisu's wound and applied some medicine. In order to appease her, he stroked her hair and said gently, "Has Mom been making things difficult for you recently?" Zisu shook her head, "No, don't think too much. Mother-in-law is just a little strict with me. It's not considered making things difficult. Hubby, how have you been at the company recently?" Her beautiful face was full of concern, and her big, beautiful eyes were full of affection. This greatly satisfied Jiang Tianhao's self-esteem as a man. He pulled her into his arms and gently stroked her hair. In a low voice, he said, "It's okay on the surface." On the surface, everyone respected him and said that he was the future crown prince. But in reality, everyone looked down on him. Who asked him to use his wife to climb up the ranks? Zisu hugged his waist and leaned her head on his chest. She said softly, "I'm sorry, hubby. It's all because of me." "Silly, what does this have to do with you? Don't think too much. Everything will be fine." Jiang Tianhao lowered his head and kissed her forehead, but in his heart, he was thinking that Zisu was becoming more and more sensible. Since she was so sensible, he would consider making her his wife forever. As for Ji Yuqi, she actually insulted him like that. After he took over the Ji group, he would make her his mistress to humiliate her. My husband is so powerful. He can definitely defeat those people who look down on others." Zisu pouted and shook her fist. Her cute appearance made Jiang Tianhao unable to help but bite her lips. The two of them lingered for a while before they separated, panting. She shyly pushed his chest. "You're so annoying. Mother-in-law is still waiting for us outside." He raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Let's go eat." There were 4 dishes and a bowl of soup on the table. Yushio was busy filling the bowl with rice. When she saw Yizisu's shy smile, she curled her lips in disdain and cursed the vixen in her heart. "Hubby, try this. I made it myself." Yizisu put some scrambled eggs and tomatoes into Jiang Tianhao's bowl and looked at him eagerly. Jiang Tianhao took a bite. It was so sweet that he was sick of it. He forced a smile. "It's not bad." She smiled brightly. "Ah, that's great. There's also this. Try it." He tasted the black eggplant with garlic sauce. It was so salty that it was bitter. He held it in his mouth and didn't know whether to swallow or spit it out. He quickly picked up the glass of water, took a big gulp, and swallowed it. "How is it? Is it good?" She stared at him with a face full of anticipation. Jiang Tianhao couldn't say anything. He smiled encouragingly. "It's delicious." Welfare, Xinwu 799. Chapter 879. Bam! Yushio slammed her chopsticks on the table and said angrily, "What's so good about it? Is this salt-free? Is there anyone who adds as much as you do? And this fish soup, why is it bitter? The tomato scrambled eggs are so sweet that it's nauseating, and there's even an eggshell inside. You're really pissing me off." Yizisu was startled by the sound of her slamming the table. Her eyes quickly became misty as she bit her lip and said timidly, "I'm sorry, Grandma. I'll be more careful next time. Don't eat these anymore. I'll make them again." She stood up in a panic and picked up a plate in each hand. She was about to go back to the kitchen when Jiang Tianhao grabbed her arm. He said gently, "It's okay. It's your first time cooking, so it's already very good that you can make it like this. Mom, don't be too picky. Zissou has to go to class during the day and tidy up the house. It's very hard on her." Yushio snorted coldly. Because of her son's authority, she didn't say anything more. She pushed the plate of vegetables she had cooked in front of her son and said, "Eat first. I'll go fry 2 eggs. Yizisu quickly said, "Grandma, let me do it." "Humph, you? I'm afraid you'll cook up something that even pigs won't eat." Yushio huffed and threw a cold face. She pulled out a chair and walked briskly to the kitchen. Yizisu bit her lip and carefully glanced at Jiang Tianhao. "I'm sorry, hubby. I'm always clumsy and can't do anything well." Jiang Tianhao sighed inwardly, but he had a gentle smile on his face. "It's okay. You've never cooked before, so it's normal that you don't know how to cook. Let's hire a nanny so that you and Mom can relax a little." She blamed herself softly, "It's all because I'm too useless." At a time like this, Jiang Tianhao could not reprimand her and could only comfort her gently. During the meal, Yushio kept a straight face, while Jiang Tianhao was gentle and kind. From time to time, he would help Yizisu put food on her plate. Yizisu was secretly delighted. She had won the first competition between her and Yushio. She would never have to do housework again. However, she didn't know that she was happy too early. A mother-in-law had countless ways to deal with her daughter-in-law. For example, in the mornings when Yizisu didn't have classes and wanted to sleep in, Yushio would play music loudly in the living room. Yushio sneered sinisterly when she dressed up beautifully and went shopping with her friends or had a gathering. "Why are you dressed up so beautifully? Are you going out to seduce men? Hurry up and change your clothes, or you're not allowed to go out. Also, who are you going out with? Give me their phone number. I want to know if they're a man or a woman." When she and Jiang Tianhao were intending to do something as husband and wife, Yushio would shout loudly outside the door. She would either ask Jiang Tianhao to help her adjust the TV or turn off the air conditioner. She would even chat with her. When Jiang Tianhao came back, her enthusiasm was extinguished. The most hateful thing was that Yu Xiu liked to chat with the elderly in the neighborhood. She spread the news that Yi Zissou had fallen in love and got married before graduating from university and had a miscarriage. She even said that she was the stepdaughter of a rich family and that she always pretended to be Miss when she was actually a stupid woman who didn't know anything. These words quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. The neighbors would smile strangely when they saw her. There were even a few perverted uncles who pretended to accidentally touch her arms or waist. It was obvious that they were trying to tease her. Yi Zissou was about to go crazy. She finally couldn't take it anymore and complained to Jiang Tianhao. However, he said, she's my mother after all. Just bear with it. Bear with it, bear with it. If she continued to bear with it, she would become a ninja turtle. Yi Zissou's resentment grew heavier and heavier. As long as there was a breakthrough, it would explode at any time. On this day, the battle between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law finally escalated from a verbal argument to a violent one. The cause of the incident was simple. Yi Zissou came home after class and saw Yu Xiu chatting with someone in the garden. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "A girl who doesn't know how to do anything. She can't even serve a man well. What do you expect her to do? You don't say, but your daughter-in-law is really too much. If I were her mother-in-law, I would teach her a lesson. She doesn't do anything herself and even hired a nanny. Does she have money to burn at home?" "That's right, that's right." A group of old ladies chimed in. Everyone joined in on a crusade against Yi Zissou, this unfilial and unvirtuous daughter-in-law. Yi Zissou was so angry that her teeth itched. She wanted nothing more than to rush up and beat up that group of old ladies. She suppressed her anger and went home. When she opened the door to the master bedroom, the air was filled with the strong smell of perfume. She saw that the makeup table was in a mess. The perfume bottle was overturned on the table, and a bottle of expensive lotion was lying on the floor. The brown liquid was sticky and stained everywhere. The carpet was also dirty. She hugged her head and screamed in anger. When Yu Xiu came back, she saw Yi Zissou sitting on the sofa with a cold expression. She ordered her unceremoniously, "Get me a glass of water. I'm dying of thirst." Yi Zissou didn't move. Yu Xiu was furious. She walked up to her in a few steps and shouted, "I'm calling you. Are you deaf? Hurry up and get me a glass of water." Yi Zissou stood up abruptly. She stared coldly at her wrinkled face and said loudly, "Did you enter my room?" Yu Xiu raised her head and said confidently, "I did." "So what? As his mother, can't I enter my son's room?" Yi Zissou's entire body emitted a sinister aura. She approached her step by step and said through gritted teeth, "Did you also spill my perfume and lotion? Not only did you spill them, but you didn't even clean them up. Isn't that too much? Why should I clean them up? Isn't this what a daughter-in-law should do? You're always so lazy. I should find something for you to do." The more Yu Xiu said, the more reasonable she became. She couldn't help it. Who asked her to hate Ji Bowen and the Ji family? That was why she tried to torture Yi Zissou. Yi Zissou was furious. She shouted, "Old witch, shut up. I've tolerated you for a long time. Little vixen, you still have reason. I'll beat you to death, you little vixen. How dare you seduce my son?" Yu Xiu also lost her mind. She pounced on Yi Zissou and grabbed her long hair. She scratched her face with her nails. Yi Zissou didn't want to be outdone. She wrestled with her. Yu Xiu was old and wasn't as strong as her. She angrily pushed her. Yu Xiu stumbled and hit the glass coffee table in the living room. Blood instantly gushed out from her forehead and stained the coffee table and carpet. Yu Xiu rolled her eyes and fainted. "Ah!" Yi Zissou held her head and screamed in horror. Only her screams could be heard in the empty room. After a long time, she calmed down. She carefully walked forward and squatted in front of Yu Xiu. Her face was covered in blood, which made people's hair stand on end. Yi Zissou's fingers trembled. She touched her nose. Although her breathing was weak, she was still alive. She immediately felt relieved. The siren of the ambulance echoed in the neighborhood. Several medical staff carried the unconscious Yu Xiu into the ambulance. An hour later, Jiang Tianhao rushed to the hospital, panting. His mother was lying on the bed, unconscious. His wife was sitting on the bench in the corridor, wiping her tears miserably. Jiang Tianhao frowned impatiently. What happened? Why did Mom suddenly faint? Yi Zhisu cried and threw herself into his arms. She sobbed, "Hubby, you're finally here. You scared me to death." The woman in his arms wiped her tears and snot all over him. He pulled her out of his arms forcefully and said with a straight face, "Let me ask you. Why did Mom suddenly faint?" Yi Zhisu didn't want to tell him that she had pushed Yu Xiu down. However, when Yu Xiu woke up, she would definitely slander her. She might as well tell him now. She looked at Jiang Tianhao pitifully and sobbed, "Mother-in-law has been very dissatisfied with me recently. Today, she even criticized me in front of the people in the neighborhood. I was angry and argued with her. Then I slipped up and pushed my mom to the ground." Jiang Tianhao gritted his teeth. His eyes were burning with anger as he roared at her, "What's wrong with you? My mom is already so old. How could you treat her like this?" Yi Zhisu's body trembled. She felt wronged and angry. She almost couldn't help but shout at him. Suddenly, a nurse walked out of the ward. "The patient has woken up. You can go in and see her now." Upon hearing this, Jiang Tianhao immediately shook off Yi Zhisu's hand. He didn't even look at her as he strode into the ward. "Mom, are you feeling better?" Jiang Tianhao sat beside Yu Xiu and asked with concern. Yu Xiu touched the gauze on her forehead. She frowned and looked at Shen Yin in pain. "What's better? I was almost killed by your wife." Jiang Tianhao was ashamed and heartbroken. "Mom, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I didn't manage her well." Yi Zhisu had just entered the room and overheard the mother and son's conversation. She clenched her fists in hatred. Her large eyes were filled with tears as she said softly, "I'm sorry, mother-in-law. I really didn't do it on purpose." Yu Xiu wouldn't let her off. She sneered and said sarcastically, "Humph, mother-in-law. I don't dare. My ancestors must have accumulated good karma to let such a vicious woman like you marry into my family. I just entered your room and accidentally broke your perfume, and you're trying to kill me. Yi Zhisu, oh Yi Zhisu, how can you be so vicious, huh?" Jiang Tianhao flew into a rage. He said with a dark face, "Zhisu, are you really going to hurt my mom over such a small matter?" Yi Zhisu's tears rolled down her cheeks. Rationality and humiliation were all thrown to the back of her mind. She cried and complained, "Of course not. Ask your mom what she's done. She criticized me in front of everyone in the neighborhood and said that my behavior was improper. She ordered me around like I was a servant. What right does she have? I'm your family's daughter-in-law, not your family's servant." She cried out all her grievances. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. It was a tragic sight. Yu Xiu was so angry that she slapped the bed. She said angrily, listen to her. What kind of things are they? Which family's daughter-in-law isn't filial to her parents-in-law and takes care of her husband? Why is she a servant in front of you? You're really a rich Mississippi. Even your mother-in-law can't order you around? I only ordered you around twice, and you hate me so much that you want to kill me. That's a glass coffee table. I'm bleeding out. Welfare, Songshu 566. Chapter 880. Every time she said a word, her chest rose and fell rapidly. She patted her chest with difficulty, and Jiang Tianhao was frightened. He comforted her. Mom, don't be agitated. Let's talk things over." Yu Xiu's finger trembled as she pointed at Yi Zhisu, who was standing not too far away. Her lips trembled as she said, "Scram. Tell her to scram. I don't want to see that jinx. Yi Zisu's face turned pale. Jinx? She actually called her a jinx? She clenched her teeth and kept chattering. Her eyes were bloodshot with anger and her gaze was full of hatred. Jiang Tianhao looked up and met her venomous gaze. He frowned in disgust and said coldly, Zisu, go back first. You can come and see my mom when she calms down. Yi Zisu gritted her teeth and dug her nails into her palms. Although she had already realized that Jiang Tianhao did not love her, she still felt heartache in the face of his indifference and disgust. She ran out of the hospital crying. The road was full of people. She rushed through the crowd in panic, not knowing where to go. Screech, the sharp sound of brakes pierced her eardrums. The driver, who was less than 2 steps away from her, stuck his head out of the window and shouted, Do you want to die? Yi Zisu stood on the zebra crossing in a daze. She covered her mouth with both hands and burst into tears. Are you trying to scam me? I didn't even touch you. Get out of the way, or I'll call the police. The driver was furious and shouted at Yi Zisu, who was standing in front of the car in a daze. Yi Zisu cried even louder, as if she wanted to vent all the sadness and grievances in her heart. She did not know that there was a long line of cars behind her, and Tang Feng's car was also in this line. Tang Feng waited for a long time, but the car in front of him did not move. The sharp sound of car horns rose and fell one after another. He frowned slightly, opened the door, got out of the car, and strode forward. A familiar figure stood in the middle of the road. She was wearing a white dress, like a white lotus. She was crying like a pear blossom in the rain. Her thin and weak shoulders trembled violently, making people feel pity for her. Tang Feng stopped in his tracks. His handsome face looked ugly. He used to love her, but when he saw through her hypocrisy, he no longer loved her and had no more interactions with her. Although he didn't like her behavior, he couldn't just watch her block the traffic and stand here to die. He walked up to her and grabbed her wrist. Without saying a word, he dragged her to the side of the road. Yi Zisu raised her head with teary eyes. Suddenly, a pair of dark eyes barged into her. She cried in a daze. Big Brother Feng. Tang Feng let go of her wrist. If you want to die, don't do it here. With that cold sentence, he strode to his car. The traffic jam was already slowly moving forward. Yi Zisu was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, she turned around and jogged to catch up with Tang Feng. Tang Feng sat in the driver's seat and glanced sideways at the thick-skinned woman sitting in the front passenger seat. He frowned and moved his lips, but when he saw her tear-stained little face, he swallowed the words he wanted to say. In the narrow space, the atmosphere was oppressive. Occasionally, the sound of a woman sobbing could be heard. Tang Feng's eyebrows twitched a few times. He suddenly grabbed a box of tissues and threw it at her. His voice was terrifyingly cold. Where are you going? Burp. Yi Zisu cried until she hiccuped. She looked pitifully at Tang Feng with a pair of wet eyes. I don't know. Tang Feng's frown deepened. I'll take you back to the Ji family. When the 2 words, Ji family, came out of his mouth, Ji Yuqi's face instantly appeared in his mind. His mood worsened. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. No. Yi Zisu shook her head with tears streaming down her face. I don't want to go back. Tang Feng's patience was about to run out. He gritted his teeth and said, Hurry up and tell me your destination. I don't have time to fool around with you. The setting sun shone through the glass and covered his face with a gentle halo. Even though his face was gloomy, he was still so handsome that it made people's hearts palpitate. Yi Zisu suddenly regretted not choosing him back then. If she had chosen him, she wouldn't have fallen to this point. When the car stopped at the place Yi Zisu said, Tang Feng's handsome face darkened. This is the place you want to come to? A nightclub? Yi Zisu's eyes were slightly red and swollen, but it didn't affect her beauty. She bitterly curled her lips and had a different kind of charm. What's wrong with a nightclub? Are only men allowed to have fun and women can't? Why do I have to wait on his mom for him and bear his disdain when he's with another woman? Tang Feng had already guessed that she and Jiang Tianhao had a conflict. He thought it was just a small quarrel, but he didn't expect Jiang Tianhao to have an affair. He looked at her deeply and his cold voice became warmer. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Yi Zixu smiled bitterly and shook her head. Big brother Feng, you don't have to comfort me. I have eyes and a heart. I can see everything clearly. It's just that I realized it too late. I gave up everything for him, but what did I get in return? You. Tang Feng admitted. For a moment, he was moved by her vicissitudes of life. His sexy lips pursed, and there was an imperceptible gentleness in his voice. It's not too late to realize it now. You can divorce him. No, it's too late. My reputation is ruined now. If I divorce him, which decent man will marry me? Yi Zixu's expression was wooden, but her mind was very clear. Not only would she not leave Jiang Tianhao, but she would also help him get the Ji family's property. By then, she would collect evidence of his infidelity, divorce him, and get half of the property. What was a man? As long as she had money, she could buy anything she wanted. Tang Feng shook his head disapprovingly. You're still young. You'll meet someone who truly loves you. Yi Zixu gazed at his handsome face with teary eyes. A gentle smile bloomed on her lips. She stroked his cheek with her slender fingers and said softly, Big brother Feng, you're a good person. Even if he hated her, he was still willing to comfort her. He was really a good man. How great would it be if she had loved him back then? Tang Feng's eyes darkened. He avoided her fingers, got out of the car, and opened the door for her. In the end, Tang Feng was still worried about leaving Yi Zixu alone in the nightclub, so he sat at the bar and drank with her. The two people who were frustrated in love didn't talk at all. They just drank quietly. As the sky darkened, the number of people in the nightclub increased. The noise and laughter filled their ears. Yi Zixu was already drunk. Her eyes were blurry as she leaned against Tang Feng's chest. Her soft and boneless hand stroked his chest. She lifted her chin and giggled. Big brother Feng, you're so good-looking. Tang Feng was also a bit drunk, but he was still rational. He held her shoulders and frowned. You're drunk. I'll take you home. She giggled foolishly and wrapped her arms around his waist. She rubbed her head against his chest. I'm not drunk. I'm very sober. Big brother Feng. I regret it. Let's be together, okay? After she said that, tears overflowed from her eyes and wet his clothes. His body stiffened. After a long silence, he sighed and picked her up by the waist. The tall and straight man carried the petite and weak woman and walked out of the nightclub with unsteady steps. In the corner, an extraordinarily handsome man propped his chin up with one hand and watched them leave. His thin lips curled into a faint smile and he muttered in a low voice, Interesting, really interesting. He leaned lazily against the soft sofa and tapped his slender fingers on the back of the chair. He thought for a moment. His eyes were as bright as stars as he skillfully pressed a string of numbers. Hello? What's the matter? The woman's clear voice came from the phone. The man's lips curved and he said lazily, Miss, it's very boring to play an innocent little virgin. I want to play something more interesting. What do you think? The woman sneered. Aren't you already in your mouth? You're still bored? The man rubbed his forehead with one hand and said resentfully, Don't you think it's cruel for a pretty boy like me to accompany an old woman every day? Okay, tell me what you think. The man revealed a devilish smile. What do you think of mother and daughter together? The woman chuckled softly. You have such a strong taste, but it's surprisingly interesting. The man's eyes lit up. So, you approve it? Up to you. But you're not allowed to make trouble for me. Euler, miss, you have to believe in my professionalism. The man hung up the phone excitedly, his dark eyes flashing with a strange glow. The more interesting the prey was, the more exciting the game would be. Oh, he was confessing insincerely. He was really not a bad person. Ji was also confessing. She threw the phone on the coffee table and picked up the tablet. Gigai shrank back into Shinja's arms and leaned against his chest comfortably. Her slender finger poked the man who was wearing black-rimmed glasses and reading the newspaper. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. Ah, am I quite bad? Shinja caught her finger and his deep eyes, which were covered by his glasses, lit up. He pondered seriously for a moment and said slowly, "You do seem to be quite bad." Ji was agitated. She turned around and straddled his lap. She wrapped her arms around his neck and gritted her teeth angrily. "It's too late for you to realize that now. Once you've boarded my pirate ship, you can forget about getting off, understand?" She poked his expressionless face with her finger. "Get on?" The man's eyes shone even brighter and his deep voice was filled with mischief. "Hey, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Don't think too much and don't think of impure things." Her words seemed to have piqued a certain someone's interest. He wrapped his arms around her waist and lifted her up slightly so that she was straddling his waist. Her legs seemed to have touched something that was quietly awakening. She nervously moved to the side. His scalding hot palms held her tightly against his body. His deep and husky voice was mesmerizing. "Be good, don't move." Ji-Yuchi's face was red and she buried her head in his chest, not daring to look at his lustful eyes. He hugged her and panted heavily. His throbbing between his legs was unusually obvious. She blushed even more and her fingertips trembled. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing. "Do you need my help?" Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 881. Large drops of sweat slid down his handsome cheeks. He was having a hard time holding it in. His eyes were dark and gloomy, and his sexy lips were pressed against her neck. He uttered a few broken syllables from the depths of his chest. "Oh, how can I help?" Stupid. Did he need a girl to teach him this kind of thing? In the end, Ji-Yuchi, who felt sorry for him, used practical actions to help him. When he was in her hands, his handsome face was tinged with a faint blush. He sucked on her lips, and his hoarse voice was full of tenderness. He shamelessly declared, "Chi-Chi, I'm yours now. You have to be responsible for me." Ji-Yuchi also patted his back shamelessly and said seriously, "You've been mine for a long time. You have to keep your chastity for me in the future, dear." He buried his head in her neck and chuckled. "Chi-Chi, you can be more reserved." Her charming eyes narrowed dangerously. "You don't like it?" "I like it very much." He nibbled on her neck. His mesmerizing voice was intoxicating, and his breath made her blush. "As long as it's Chi-Chi, I like it." A strong sense of happiness surged in her chest, and her heart was unbelievably soft. Ji-Yuchi hugged the man who belonged to her tightly. She was extremely grateful to God for giving her a chance to do it all over again. In her delirious state, she heard his extremely gentle voice. "Chi-Chi, marry me." She smiled, and her eyes were glistening with tears. "Okay." As soon as she said that, her lips turned cold. The kiss went from light to deep, mixed with a man's bone-deep feelings. It was a love that would last a lifetime. Ugh. My head hurts. Yizisu woke up from the darkness. She reached out and rubbed the wall. After a long while, she found the light switch. Click. The soft light shone on her, and she closed her eyes uncomfortably. "What's wrong?" The man's hoarse voice rang in her ears. Then, a pair of arms hugged her from behind, and his hot body pressed against her back. She suddenly trembled, and her beautiful eyes widened. This voice, she turned her head stiffly and was suddenly met with a pair of confused eyes that had just woken up. Then, she saw the man's tall nose bridge and handsome face. Then, she looked down and saw his bare chest. Xiao. Xiaoihan. Yizisu called out this name with a trembling voice. She panicked and stepped back, but his arm around her waist was too hard, and she couldn't do so. The dazed look in Xiao Yihan's eyes gradually dissipated, and a faint smile appeared. He raised his hand and ruffled her hair. He whispered, "What's the matter? Are you confused from sleeping?" Yi Zisu's words, "Of you, we." Hearing this, his handsome face instantly blushed, and he coughed uncomfortably. His voice was full of grievance. "Did you forget what happened last night?" Yi Zisu's head was about to explode. Although she did plan to cheat on Jiang Tianhao, the person she wanted to cheat on was Tang Feng. Last night, she was clearly hugging Tang Feng, so why was the person sleeping next to her when she woke up with Xiao Yihan? Who could explain this? Xiao Yihan had been paying attention to her expression. When he saw that she looked like she was having a headache, he sighed sadly. "Looks like you really forgot what happened last night." "Heh. No wonder. Who asked you to like Tang Feng? Last night, you were hugging me and calling his name non-stop. What was with this, betrayed by your lover, tone?" Yi Zisu wanted to vomit blood. Her long nails dug deep into his shoulders as she said with difficulty, "I'm sorry. I really don't remember. Please tell me what happened last night." Xiao Yihan's expression became more and more sorrowful. His eyes were filled with strong accusation as he slowly said, "Last night, you and Tang Feng got drunk at a bar. Tang Feng carried you and wanted to take you home, but he drank too much. As soon as he walked out of the bar, he fell and the two of you fell on the ground. He paused for a moment and quickly glanced at her chest. He coughed and continued, "The buttons on your shirt burst open, revealing, a few men wanted to hit on you and surrounded you. I happened to pass by and chased them away. Then, I called a car to take Tang Feng home. I wanted to take you back to the Ji family, but I didn't expect you to hug me and cry loudly, saying that you didn't want to go home." Yi Zisu rubbed her forehead with a headache. After the hangover, her head hurt unbearably. She tried hard to recall, but there were only a few remnant images in her mind. For example, Tang Feng carried her, someone put her into the car, and she seemed to have done something embarrassing like hugging someone's leg and crying. After that, she had no recollection of it at all. She flew into a rage out of humiliation and vented her anger on Xiao Yihan. "Even if I said that I don't want to go home, you can't do this to me." Xiao Yihan widened his eyes in surprise. He didn't understand and asked, "What did I do to you?" Yi Zisu was embarrassed and angry at the same time. Her cheeks were red and she bit her lip. That's right. Xiao Yihan suddenly realized. "You're talking about the time we slept together?" Yi Zisu glared at him fiercely. He suddenly burst into laughter, laughing so hard that tears rolled down his cheeks. "Zisu, your imagination is too rich. We didn't do anything last night." "No, to be precise, you did. You vomited all over me. It took me a lot of effort to change you into clean clothes." "Change into clean clothes?" Yi Zisu was stunned. Then, her cheeks turned red. He actually helped her change her clothes. It was too embarrassing. She took the opportunity to touch her body. Sure enough, her body was wrapped in a loose sleeping robe. She opened her mouth and said, "Since nothing happened, why are you lying with me? And, you were naked." Xiao Yihan sounded aggrieved. "You dirted my nightgown, wore the only clean nightgown I had left, and slept on my only bed. What do you think I should do?" Yi Zisu looked down in embarrassment and said softly, "I'm sorry. I misunderstood." His broad palm rubbed her hair. His voice was relaxed and happy. "It's okay. As long as you don't misunderstand me as a bad person." She looked up and smiled at him gently. "Thank you so much for last night. Brother Yihan, can I trouble you with something?" "What is it?" The corners of his lips turned up slightly. His bright smile warmed her heart. She pursed her lips shyly. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. Can you help me get my clothes?" He frowned in distress. "Your clothes are dirty. Why don't you wear mine first?" I'll go out and buy you a new set. Thank you very much. Xiao Yihan brought her a white shirt and a pair of beach shorts. After she changed, she saw herself in the mirror and was too embarrassed to go out. She dawdled in the bathroom for a long time. Xiao Yihan finished making breakfast and knocked on the door to call her. She bit her lip and walked out boldly. The woman in front of him had a slender figure. Her hair was tied up high, revealing her exquisite collarbone. The white shirt covered her legs and beach shorts. At first glance, one could only see her slender legs, which made one's imagination run wild. He couldn't help but want to explore the scenery under the shirt. Her exquisite and graceful figure was faintly discernible, revealing a different kind of charm. Xiao Yihan didn't hide the amazement in his eyes. He chuckled. A beauty is a beauty. Even if you're wearing a simple white shirt, you're still beautiful beyond compare. Which woman didn't like to be praised for being beautiful? Yi Zisu's heart was sweet, but she was also a little embarrassed. She stroked the hair by her ear and pursed her lips into a smile. Don't joke around. Yihan Gij is experienced and knowledgeable. What kind of beauty haven't you seen? Xiao Yihan's eyes gradually deepened, and the smile on his lips became gentler. I've seen many, but you're the only one who has entered my heart. These words sounded a little ambiguous. Yi Zisu couldn't help but be startled. Just as she was about to probe, he quickly looked away. His cheeks seemed to be stained with a faint blush. He coughed and said, "Eat breakfast. Otherwise, it'll get cold later." Cheese and jam sandwiches, fried eggs, fried sausages, and warm milk. They all looked delicious. Yi Zisu's movements were elegant and didn't make a single sound. The man opposite her had even more standard dining etiquette. He was like a European aristocrat. His simple eating movements made people feel as if they were looking at a piece of art. She took a sip of milk and wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin. She smiled and said, I didn't expect Yihan Gij to be so good at cooking. Xiao Yihan smiled meaningfully. This is the first time I've cooked for a girl. This is the first time I've taken in a drunk girl. This is also the first time I've let a girl wear my clothes. You've broken so many of my firsts. How do you plan to repay me? Yi Zisu had heard from Chen Tingfang that Xiao Yihan had never been in a relationship before. At that time, she didn't believe it. Now that she heard him say this, she couldn't help but tease him. Then I'm really honored. Why don't I introduce a girlfriend to Yihan Gij as repayment? We shouldn't let a good man like you take advantage of an outsider. The smile on Xiao Yihan's handsome face deepened. His long fingers naturally rubbed her cheek and he said gently, since I can't let an outsider take advantage of me, how about you take advantage of me? Yi Zisu was shocked. She hurriedly avoided his fingers and smiled awkwardly. Yihan Gij, you can't joke about this. I'm already married. If other people hear this, it will cause misunderstandings. Xiao Yihan's smile froze. His eyes dimmed. He stiffly withdrew his hand and said in a bleak voice, It's just a joke. Don't take it to heart. He got up and pushed the chair away. Rest here for a while. I'll go out and buy some clothes for you. I'll be back soon. His tall figure walked towards the door. His back looked a little lonely. Yi Zisu stared at his back in a daze. Her heart was full of bitterness. Look, there were so many people who loved her in the past. Why did she choose Jiang Tianhao? After being in a daze for a long time, she suddenly smiled faintly. At least the man who loved her in the past still loved her now. In less than half an hour, Xiao Yihan returned. He was carrying a bag of high-end women's clothing. It was a white silk dress that reached her knees. It fit Yi Zisu perfectly, as if it was tailor-made for her. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 882. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and the corners of her lips curled up. It fits. How did you know my size? He stared at her with his deep eyes and smiled. There's a size on the back of your shirt. I noticed it last night. The smile on Yizisu's face became sweeter, and something broke out from the bottom of her heart. Under his affectionate gaze, she shyly lowered her eyes. The space between the two of them was filled with pink bubbles, and the room was filled with an ambiguous atmosphere. Shaoihan used his right hand to lift her chin, lowered his head, and slowly moved closer to her cheek. Her clear black and white eyes were wide open, and her gaze was confused, as if she didn't know what he wanted to do. He chuckled softly, and suddenly used his left hand to cover her eyes, and his cold lips covered her. A numb feeling spread from where the two of them were pressed against each other. Yizisu couldn't help but tremble. She hurriedly placed her hands on his waist and wanted to push him away, but he held her tightly in his arms. His soft lips tossed and turned affectionately. Slowly, she sank into his gentleness. In the quiet room, it was warm and ambiguous. The sweet atmosphere lingered between the two of them. Their heartbeats quickened, and their breathing became erratic. In a daze, the two of them caressed each other without any rhyme or reason. Suddenly, a melodious ringtone sounded. Yizisu seemed to wake up from a dream, and she suddenly pushed Shaoihan away. Her cheeks were flushed, and her eyes were watery with a layer of spring. Her slightly swollen red lips parted slightly, and it was indescribably charming. Shaoihan's dark eyes were filled with lust. His slightly rough fingers gently brushed against her lips, and his actions were extremely seductive. Yizisu's heart suddenly shrank, and she only felt her whole body heat up. She hurriedly avoided his scorching gaze and rushed to the coffee table. She picked up her phone and took a deep breath to calm her frantic heartbeat. "Hello?" The voice that came out of her mouth was soft and hoarse, and even she was shocked. She hurriedly patted her burning cheeks and forced herself to return to normal as soon as possible. On the other end of the line, Jiang Tianhao paused for a moment before asking gently, "Honey, where did you go last night?" Yizisu sneered in her heart. She ran away from home yesterday, and he only called to ask about her today. He really cared about her. She replied indifferently, "At a friend's house." Jiang Tianhao's tone tightened. "A male or female friend?" Yizisu chuckled when she heard that. Her laughter was a little sad. "What do you think? After we started dating, did I still have any close male friends?" His tone softened. "Honey, it was my fault yesterday. I was too harsh with my words. Where are you? I'll pick you up." She looked coldly at the scenery outside the window and said softly, "No need. I don't want to delay your work. I'll go back by myself. How can work be more important than you, my wife? During this period of time, I've made you work hard." Jiang Tianhao's coaxing skills are first class. As long as he wants, he can coax people to be obedient. Yizisu chuckled and did not say anything. After waiting for him to coax her, she changed the topic. "Hubby, how's mother-in-law?" "Mom is much better now. She can be discharged tomorrow." Jiang Tianhao's voice became gentler. "Honey, Mom is old and has a bad temper. She's made you suffer. For my sake, you have to bear with her a little, okay?" Okay, hubby. I'll go to the hospital to accompany mother-in-law later." "What kind of soup does she like?" "How about chicken soup?" Yizisu's obedient voice fell into Jiang Tianhao's ears. He smiled in satisfaction. "Chicken soup then. It's my fortune to be able to marry such an understanding wife like you." Yizisu pouted coquettishly. "You're so annoying. You only know how to smooth talk." "Oh, honey, I love you." "Hubby, I love you too." The husband and wife each had their own ulterior motives. When Yizisu hung up the phone, she was the only one left in the room. She saw a note on the table. On the note, there was a handsome handwriting. "I don't want to hear you talking to him lovingly. Lock the door when you leave." She held the thin piece of paper in her hand. Through the last word and the strength of the pen on the back of the paper, she seemed to see his frown. Suddenly, she felt a little empty in her heart. Ji Yuqi stared at the ring on her finger and giggled foolishly. Qing Sang threw her a look of disdain and said lightly, boss, this is the 5th time you've been distracted. I beg of you, can you be more serious during the meeting? Yuchi returned her a look that said, you know what I mean. The happy smile on her face was too bright. Qing Sang, Shinja proposed to me. Qing Sang held her forehead with one hand. She had a headache. Boss, you've said this to me 3 times. I beg of you, quickly go back to normal, okay? Qing Sang really couldn't understand this. I can't wait for the whole world to see my happiness look. Was love really so magical? Could it make a rational person go insane? She silently guessed that young Master Shin must be in a state of madness at this moment. She guessed right. Young Master Shin had successfully become a psychopath. Whether it was a big meeting or a small one, this boss's mind-wandering had become a common occurrence. Sometimes, he would touch the ring on his finger and giggle foolishly. Sometimes, he would frown and think about something important. Sometimes, he would sigh and say, it's not time yet. As expected, I still have to wait. Sometimes, he would smile and mutter to himself, Chi has finally become my woman. Zay and the others were speechless. Boss, we seem to have heard something incredible. In the end, they couldn't stand it anymore. They sent Zay as a representative to tactfully advise the boss, young master, you seem to have been too emotional recently. It has attracted the attention of Shen Yu and Shen Jianhao. Shenja's expression turned cold. He finally pulled himself out of the state of madness. His handsome face was as cold as ice. This was why he hadn't announced his relationship with Yuchi to the public. Shen Jianhao and his son wouldn't let go of any evidence that could be used to threaten him. A cold aura erupted from his body. He said in a deep voice, keep an eye on them. If they dare to harm Chi, I don't mind putting righteousness before family. Such a pair of father and son didn't deserve to be his family at all. The press conference held by Free Clothing Company was very successful. Not only did it receive many media reports, but it also received the support of many business bigwigs. Even the most famous fashion designers praised it. Yuchi sat below the stage and looked at the designers on the stage surrounded by flowers and applause. She couldn't help but smile. After this promotion, their company, Free, had finally entered the market and would definitely shine. Free Clothing Company quickly set up counters in major shopping malls. Advertisements and posters filled every corner of the city. The trend of promoting comfort and freedom swept through. On the first day of the launch, there was a situation of out of stock. In just a short month, Free had gained a firm foothold in the clothing industry and faintly led the trend of fashion trends. The designers in the company were also in high demand and became the target of other companies poaching. Yuchi didn't mind. Instead, she told the designers frankly, if you feel that other companies can give you better development opportunities, I won't force you to stay. But for those who stay, you will realize your value in Free, including economic and social value. Yuchi didn't lie to them. She gave them a salary that was 10% higher than their peers, not to mention a generous bonus. As for social value, Free had set up a charity fund. For every piece of clothing sold, they would donate 1 yuan to the poor mountainous areas. When they donated, the designers had the right to sign their names. This greatly stimulated their enthusiasm for work. Moreover, none of the designers were poached by other companies. As a new company, Free attracted the attention of many people, including the leader of the clothing industry, G Group. When Yuchi returned home from school, she saw that her father, who usually left early and returned late, had returned home early. He was holding a newspaper in his hand and his brows were slightly furrowed. He seemed to be troubled by something. She took advantage of his distraction and sat beside him. She tilted her head and looked at him with a smile. Dad, you're back early today. Bowen's brows relaxed. He casually placed the newspaper on the coffee table and teased, I can't always be a workaholic. I've become estranged from my family. No, Ahan and I love Dad the most. Yuchi smiled and flattered. Bowen couldn't help but laugh. The gloominess in his eyes dissipated. Yuchi hugged his arm and said coquettishly, "Dad, I saw that you didn't look too good just now. Is there something bothering you?" Bowen had never told his family about the company's troubles in the past because he didn't want them to worry. However, Yuchi had already grown up. She would take over the company sooner or later. It was a good thing to let her know about it earlier. Thinking about this, he slowly said, "Recently, a clothing company called Free has appeared in Ing City. Although this company has just been established and its scale is relatively small, its strength is not to be underestimated. The company's executives all believe that it will grow into a strong competitor for the G Group. Therefore, someone proposed to acquire Free." Yuchi frowned. "I don't think it's a good idea. If we acquire every potential competitor, not only will we have to bear a high cost, we will also have to bear a certain amount of risk. Moreover, for the company itself, it won't form an effective competitive environment. It won't be good for the company's long-term development." Bowen's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "I didn't expect my daughter to have the same thoughts as me. I don't agree with the acquisition plan either. The clothing brands under the G Group have been the number one for more than 10 years. Without the stimulation of competition, their designs are also not very innovative. I'm afraid that they won't be able to adapt to the trend soon." Yes. Yuchi nodded vigorously. "Dad, I think that the G Group should inject more fresh blood. Also, other than the traditional market, e-commerce is also a fat piece of meat. We can't ignore it." At this time, e-commerce was already on the rise. However, just like other high-end brands, the G Group didn't pay much attention to online sales. Yuchi knew how popular Taobao was later, so she reminded him this time. Bowen smiled and patted her head. "The company is already planning to operate in this direction. Chi-Chi, you've really grown up and have your own ideas. This is very good. When you graduate, come to the company and help Dad." "Okay." Yuchi blinked. "Dad, I'll let you see that your daughter is very amazing." She didn't want to tell her father that she was the boss behind Free. When the time was right, she would give him a surprise. Bowen was amused by her playful appearance and laughed heartily. Awesome novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 883. His laughter stopped abruptly. His dark gaze fell on Yuchi's middle finger. A beautiful diamond ring was sparkling. His expression turned ugly and his voice was stern. "Yuchi, what's with that ring?" Yuchi retracted her finger uncomfortably and said softly, "Dad, I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't find the right opportunity." She raised her head and met his gaze with determination. Biting her lip, she said, "I'm in love." Bowen's expression changed a few times. Finally, he snorted coldly. "Just in love?" Yuchi leaned in front of him and smiled ingratiatingly. Her eyes curved into crescents as she said carefully, "I agreed to his proposal." Bowen's heart was burning with anger. His daughter had been abducted by that brat and he didn't even know about it. He opened his mouth and was about to fly into a rage when Yuchi hurriedly begged for mercy. "Dad, if you want to teach me a lesson, why don't you go to the study?" Looking at his daughter's pitiful little face, Bowen's heart softened. He suppressed the anger in his heart and sighed. "Tell me, which family's brat is it? I'll say the ugly words first. If that brat doesn't enter my eyes, even if you agree to his proposal, you can forget about being together." Yuchi pouted and blinked. Her voice was light and playful as she said, "Daddy, do you like the eldest young master of the Shin family?" Bowen was startled. When Shinja disregarded his own safety and blocked the sulfuric acid for Chi-Chi, he felt that something was wrong. Most people wouldn't be able to risk their own lives to protect others. He didn't expect them to really be in love. After a moment, he said with a gloomy expression, "It seems that you two have been together for a long time." "You actually hid it from me for so long." Yuchi was full of guilt. "Dad, I'm sorry. I have my reasons, forget it. Girls have grown up and should have their own thoughts." Dad doesn't blame you. Although he said that, Ji Bowen still felt a little lonely in his heart. The daughter he had treasured for so long was going to leave him one day and go into the arms of others to start a new life. The corners of his lips curled up as he caressed his daughter's hair. His voice was gentle as he said, "That boy from the Shin family is a capable man. He's good to you too. I'm relieved to hand you over to him." Daddy. Ji Yuchi was speechless. Her eyes were red and covered with a layer of water. She blinked back her tears and threw herself into his embrace. "Daddy, thank you." Ji Bowen patted her back. At this point, as a father-in-law, he had to meet his future son-in-law. "Chi-Chi, is Shinja free recently? Ask him out and we'll have a meal together." "Okay, I'll ask him out." Ji Yuchi blinked. "Dad, can you not tell Auntie Chen for the time being? We plan to get married after I graduate. We don't want too many people to know about our relationship." Ji Bowen nodded. "That's good too." "Do Shinja's parents know about your relationship?" "They don't know yet. The situation in the Shin family is a little complicated." Ji Yuchi hesitated. Ji Bowen thought for a moment and knew what was going on. Shin Jinhao's first wife gave birth to his eldest son, Shinja, but she passed away a few years later. His new wife, Tao Shirin, gave birth to his second son, Shinyu. Although in the eyes of outsiders, the Shin family was happy and blissful, there were many discord in the wealthy families. Who knew what was going on behind the scenes? After dinner, Ji Yuchi lazily lay on the sofa and chatted with Shinju on the phone. When she heard his magnetic and affectionate voice coming from the other end of the line, she couldn't help but smile. Her exquisite eyes were full of smiles. "Ah, Ja, I told my dad about us. He wants to see you." "Okay, when?" Shinja touched the ring on his finger and a crazy smile appeared on his face. His voice was gentle and charming. Ji Yuchi rolled a few times on the sofa. "Tomorrow night at 7:00 at Zuixiang restaurant. Don't be late." "Okay, got it." His little girl's soft voice was right next to his ear. He couldn't help but miss her. The corners of his lips moved slightly and her name came out from between his lips. "Chi-Chi, I miss you." Ji Yuchi's cheeks blushed. She said softly, "I miss you too." The person on the other end of the line was silent for a few seconds and suddenly said, "Wait for me." "Huh?" Ji Yuchi didn't understand. She blinked and was about to ask again when the phone beeped. Oh, that jerk Shinja. He actually hung up the phone without knowing why. Ouch, she punched the cushion in frustration. After venting her anger, she ran into the bathroom to take a shower. Half an hour later, she walked out of the bathroom with wet hair and a towel wrapped around her body. In the blink of an eye, she saw a dark figure jump in from outside the window. She was so shocked that she almost screamed. When she took a closer look, her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She opened her mouth in disbelief. "Aja, why are you here?" The little girl in front of him had just taken a shower. Her wet hair was wrapped in a towel and her entire body was wrapped in only a towel. Her fair skin was slightly red from the steam rising from the shower. Her exquisite collarbones, beautiful neck and slender legs were breathtakingly beautiful. Her charming almond-shaped eyes widened in surprise. Her pink lips were slightly parted and her dazed expression was so adorable that it made people want to pinch her cheeks. Shinja walked closer to her with his long legs. There was a suppressed flame in his dark eyes that lit up his eyes. Ji Yuchi's heart trembled and she instinctively retreated. He had already opened his arms and pulled her into his embrace. His cold lips kissed her cheek and he whispered, "I really wanted to see you, so I came here." Ji Yuchi blinked hard and finally understood what he meant when he said, "Wait for me." The next second, she suddenly reacted. Her cheeks flushed red and she pushed her hands against his chest. She said hurriedly, "Let go of me. I'm going to change." "Don't change. It's very beautiful." His cold lips slowly moved down her chin to her neck. His low voice was like the music played by a cello. Don't. Her voice trembled as she frantically grabbed his right hand that was caressing her waist. He did not continue the movement of his hand. Jun Yen buried himself behind her neck and sniffed her body fragrance. His nose exhaled a scalding hot breath, just like a kitten that could not eat fish. It was stuffy and somewhat irritable. I still have to endure it for a long time. How long would it take to endure until the two of them got married? She could clearly feel the hard thing that was pressed against her. She leaned into his embrace and did not dare to move. She gritted her teeth and braced herself to answer, "Actually, you can try using your hands." After saying that, she wanted to bite off her own tongue. Why did she have to be his teacher and teach him such things? Ji-Yuchi was so embarrassed that she was about to cry. "Help me." His voice was hoarse, and all the muscles in his body were stiff. He held her hand and covered the uncomfortable part of his body. Her palm was hot and her head buzzed as if it was about to explode. She could hear his low and sexy moans in her ears. It was like a demon in the dark night singing in a low voice. She had only helped him once and he was already so familiar with it. He bloomed passionately in her palm. She was so embarrassed that she closed her eyes tightly. She really wanted to dig a hole and bury herself in it. There was a saying that she reaped what she sowed. The sweet smell gradually dissipated. Ji-Yuchi stiffly stroked his back and coughed uncomfortably. Let's wash up." She had just taken a shower and it seemed like she needed to take another one. The two of them cleaned up. Ji-Yuchi's cheeks were still red. She pretended to be calm as she wiped her hair. However, the towel in her hand was snatched away by a big hand. Shenja naturally pulled her to sit on his lap and wiped her hair with the towel. Then, he dried her hair with the hairdryer. A warm breeze of moderate temperature slowly brushed past Ji-Yuchi's head. His slender fingers weaved through her hair, stirring up a tingling sensation at the roots of her hair, causing ripples in her heart. She lowered her head in embarrassment. Her flushed cheeks looked even more charming under the soft light. "Chi-Chi, will you be angry that I didn't introduce you to the Shin family?" Unknowingly, the hairdryer had been replaced with a comb and was gently combing her hair. She raised her head. Her eyes were bright and full of smiles. "Silly, do you think I'll be angry?" The traditional marriage of meeting the parents and receiving their blessings was not suitable for them at all. She smiled. "As long as the people we care about give us their blessings, that's enough." Bits of resplendent light blossomed in his obsidian-like eyes, and then spread to his lips. He lovingly kissed her hair, and his heart was filled with warmth. It was getting late. Ji-Yuchi urged him to leave, but he hugged her domineeringly and refused to let go. "I'll leave after you fall asleep." Ji-Yuchi had no choice but to compromise. Under his expectant gaze, Gigai lay down on the bed. He quickly lay down beside her and hugged her waist. "Gigai, go to sleep." How could she sleep while being hugged by a moving stove? Ji-Yuchi closed her eyes and silently counted the stars in her heart. When she counted to 560, her mind was still very clear. She helplessly opened her eyes and looked at the man beside her. His jet-black hair fell softly on his forehead and his outstanding facial features were perfect. His deep eyes were slightly closed and his high nose bridge was exquisite like a sculpture. His fair face was tainted with a layer of holy light under the soft light. "He's obviously a man, but he's even better looking than me," Ji-Yuchi murmured softly. Her fingers landed on his high nose bridge and gently tapped it. "Hey, your eyelashes are so long too." Those curly eyelashes were like a small brush. How could they grow on a man's eyes? Ji-Yuchi sighed softly. Her fingers touched it gently and quickly retracted, afraid that she would wake him up. "Do you like it?" It was a low, intoxicated voice. She nodded earnestly. "I like it." As soon as she finished speaking, she sensed that something was amiss. The man whom she was scrutinizing had already opened his eyes. There was a smile in his dark eyes. He tightened his arms around her waist and pulled her closer to him. "Since Chi-Chi doesn't want to sleep, let's do something else. Oh, she was caught peeping. How embarrassing. Ji Yuqi's eyes flickered. She pressed her hands against his chest and said in a muffled voice, "No, hurry up and go back." Welfare, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 884. His tone was bleak, as if he was hurt by her words. "You don't want to be alone with me? I just want to spend more time with you." She knew that he was doing this on purpose, but she still felt sorry for him. She stroked his hair and explained, "No, it's already so late. You should rest. You still have to go to the office tomorrow." He insisted, "I'll leave after you fall asleep." She said helplessly, "But I have insomnia. I can't sleep." "It's okay. I have a way to make you fall asleep faster." The corners of his lips curled up and his bright eyes stared at her lips with ill intentions. He intertwined his breath with hers. He kissed her until she was dizzy and her whole body was soft. She felt really tired. She thought that Shinja had become naughty. Her eyelids couldn't hold up anymore, and she gently closed them. "Baby, sleep well." A feather-light kiss brushed across her forehead, and a gentle voice entered her dream. Zuixiang Restaurant was a very stylish private restaurant in Ning City. There was a limit to the number of customers they received every day. Naturally, the dishes here were also famous for being delicious. In the antique private room, an elegant fragrance lingered in the air. Shinja was wearing a high-end tailor-made suit. He sat upright and his casual movements revealed elegance. His handsome and cold facial features, sword-like eyebrows, and proud and handsome nose bridge, were all perfect masterpieces of God. When Ji Bowen walked into the private room with his daughter and saw this scene, he nodded in his heart. But judging from his appearance, Shinja was indeed a rare good man who was worthy of Yuqi. "Hello, uncle." Shinja stood up and greeted him politely. After Ji Bowen nodded, his smiling gaze turned to Ji Yuqi. His words and actions revealed his excellent upbringing. Ji Bowen's satisfaction with him increased, but he didn't show it on his face. He said lightly, "Sorry to keep you waiting." "Not long. I just arrived." Shinja didn't say much, but Ji Bowen could feel his sincerity and respect. He personally poured a cup of tea and presented it to Ji Bowen. "Uncle, the tiguanyin here is not bad. Try it." Tiguanyin was Ji Bowen's favorite tea. Ji Yuqi saw the satisfaction in her father's eyes and couldn't help but smile. She blinked at Shinja in appreciation. She thought that with Shinja's personality, he wouldn't try to please her father. She didn't expect him to do it. She was happy that he respected her father so much. Although Shinja and Ji Bowen did not talk much, the atmosphere was surprisingly harmonious. After dinner, Ji Yuqi saw that her father wanted to speak but stopped. She guessed that he wanted to talk to Shinja alone, so she smiled and got up. "Dad, Aja, I'm going outside to make a call. You guys can talk." After Ji Yuqi left, Ji Bowen's face became serious. He stared at Shinja and went straight to the point. "Shinja, do you really like my daughter?" Shinja's lips curled up slightly. "I won't marry anyone else." These simple words came out of his mouth, but they sounded powerful. Ji Bowen was unmoved. His gaze was deep and dark as he said in a deep voice, "I can't let my daughter come to any harm. What makes you think that you can protect her for the rest of her life?" In an instant, Shinja's aura suddenly changed. His shocking eyes carried a dangerous message, and the space between his brows was dyed with a peerless arrogance and nobility. It was as if the entire world had submitted to him. He didn't say much, but slowly spat out 2 words, "I can." Every person with power had their own kind of aura. Ji Bowen could feel that kind of aura from him at this moment. It was arrogant and unruly, cold and domineering, and noble like a king. This was the real Shinja, who stood at the top of everyone. Ji Bowen looked at him deeply. "I don't want my daughter to marry into a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. Do you understand what I mean?" Ji Bowen was not an easy person to deal with. Last night, Yuqi told him about her relationship with Shenjia. He used his connections and even old friends that he had not contacted for a long time to find out about the Shen family. In the end, his guess was confirmed. The Shen family was not as harmonious as it seemed on the surface. Shenjia was very capable to be able to live safely until today. Shenjia's gaze changed slightly. His expression was solemn as he said solemnly, "I won't let my woman suffer with me. Before Chi-Chi marries me, I will deal with those problems. Remember your promise." When Ji Yuqi returned to the private room, their conversation had already ended. Although she did not know what they had talked about, she realized that her father's attitude toward Shenjia had changed. He was no longer the polite and distant person he had been in the beginning. Instead, he was treating Shenjia with the gentleness of an elder towards a younger generation. He was even in a good mood and allowed the two of them to continue their date. Of course, they could not stay out all night. Ji Yuqi's hand was held by Shenjia as she watched her father's car drive away. She asked curiously, "My father seems to like you a lot. What did you talk about?" Shenjia raised his hand and tucked the hair by her cheek behind her ear. The corner of his lips curved. "You have a very good father." Then, he repeated their conversation to her word for word. Ji Yuqi's heart warmed. She had always been glad that she had a father who loved her. Her eyes sparkled as she said childishly, "My father is naturally the best father in the world." Shenjia's slightly cold fingers brushed her nose as he said seriously, "Your husband is also the best husband in the world." The slightly sad atmosphere was broken by him and only left with laughter. Her eyes were curved and her smile was as beautiful as a peach. She held his cheeks with both hands and teased, "Old Lady Wang is selling melons and praising her own melons. Young Master Shen, your skin has become thicker again." His handsome face was rubbed out of shape by her, but he did not stop her from rubbing it. He was good-natured and allowed her to rub it. His tone was as serious as ever. "Since you like my face so much, then kiss it." She laughed until she was out of breath. "Hey, is there a cause and effect between the two?" "Of course there is. Just like this." As soon as his voice fell, his cold lips had already landed on her face. He whispered softly in her ear, "I like it so much that I can't help but want to take a bite." On the streets at night, neon lights flickered. At the intersection where people were coming and going, a tall and handsome figure held a petite girl in his arms. He protected her in his embrace. Other than him, no one else could see her blushing face that was as beautiful as a flower. Even acquaintances who passed by could not recognize Ji Yuqi, who was tightly hugged by Shenjia. When Yizisu and Xiaoyihan passed by them, they only glanced at them indifferently before returning all their attention to Xiaoyihan. Ever since that ambiguous morning, Xiaoyihan had been looking for all kinds of reasons to ask Yizisu out. Yizisu was already physically and mentally exhausted from being tortured by Yuxiu. She had also completely lost all hope for Jiang Tianhao and was in a period of emotional emptiness. Coincidentally, a man who could give her warmth and make her happy had appeared. Of course, she would not reject him. At first, she would still pretend to be reserved and evade him. However, when he had several coincidental encounters with her in the shopping mall, campus, and bars, she allowed him to carefully hold her hand. Xiaoyihan took Yizisu to an extremely lively bar. The colorful lights were flashing and sexy dancers were stripteasing on the poles. A group of wild men below the stage were hooting. The atmosphere was hot and fiery. For a beauty like Yizisu, even if she had a male companion by her side, when she walked into the bar, she was like a little white rabbit walking into a pack of wolves. She attracted a lot of hot gazes. The naked desire in their eyes almost tore her apart. Yizisu had never been to such a daring place. She was a little afraid in her heart, but more than that, she was faintly excited. She suddenly felt like she had stepped into a new world. That kind of life where she was the center of attention and sought after by men made her blood begin to boil. Xiaoyihan turned his head and saw the fire hidden in her eyes. The corners of his lips curled up mockingly. The so-called White Lotus goddess, after taking off her outer clothes, was nothing more than a loose woman. The wild music started to play. All kinds of men and women on the dance floor swayed their waists and buttocks in the wind. There were already men and women who could not help but hide in the corner and make out discordant sounds. Yi Zissou and Xiao Han were also on the dance floor. They were using the wild dance to release their emotions. Unknowingly, the deafening electronic music turned into soothing music. Xiao Han stretched out his long arm and pulled Yi Zissou into his embrace. She was still in a state of excitement. Her beautiful eyes were sparkling and her cheeks were rosy, just like a cute apple. Xiao Han's eyes darkened. He slowly leaned over and kissed her lips. She subconsciously wanted to push him away, but he held her hand tightly and deepened the kiss. At this moment, Yi Zissou's hearing became more sensitive. She could clearly hear the sound of her heart beating faster. She could also hear the sounds of couples kissing around her. Her heart trembled. The feeling of her blood boiling came back. She no longer resisted. She slowly closed her eyes and gave in to him. The ambiguous sounds in her ears became clearer and clearer. It was as if she was in heaven. When Xiao Han picked her up horizontally and stuffed her into the back seat of the car, she suddenly opened her eyes and hugged his neck to stop him from taking another step. Her bright eyes were filled with shyness and her voice was seductive. "Brother Han, I'm sorry. I'm already married. I'm not worthy of you." Xiao Han's scorching lips rubbed against her neck. His deep voice was filled with desire. "Zissou, I won't allow you to say such things. In my heart, you are the purest. You won't understand how happy I was when you were willing to look at me. Zissou, I love you." His scorching breath sprayed on her neck. His rough fingers rubbed against her skin. As she was pressed against his chest, she could clearly hear his intense heartbeat. A flame ignited in her heart and burned her body. She really wanted to follow her instincts and accept his love. However, she still remembered her mother's words. If a man obtained it too easily, he would not cherish it. Thus, she gritted her teeth and pushed him away resolutely. She frantically adjusted her clothes. "Brother Han, we can't do this. I should go home." Xiao Han's handsome face was abnormally red. He took a deep breath and suppressed his desire. He said in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry. I lost control just now. I'll send you home." As he spoke, he combed her hair with his fingers. No need." Yi Zissou was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. She frantically avoided his fingers. "I'll go home on my own." She quickly opened the car door. Just as she was about to jump out of the car, Xiao Han's deep and sad voice was heard. "Are you afraid of me?" Her body trembled. She softly said, "No, I just don't want my husband to misunderstand." Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 885. Xiao Han grabbed her arm and said angrily, "Who does Jiang Tianhao think he is? Since he let you down, why do you still care about what he thinks? Zissou, you're a good woman who deserves to be cherished by any man. Why do you still want to be with him and torture yourself?" Her back was facing him, and her body was trembling slightly. The next second, her tears fell onto the back of his hand. It was icy cold, and he couldn't care less anymore. He suddenly pulled her into his embrace and howled with heartache, "Silly. Why do you have to torture yourself like that?" Finally, someone understood her grievances. Finally, someone felt sorry for her. She couldn't help but cry. She turned around and threw herself into his arms, crying like a child. He caressed her back again and again. He didn't say any comforting words, but she didn't feel lonely anymore. Her eyelids suddenly felt cold. His warm lips gently kissed away the tears on her face, bit by bit, full of tenderness. He whispered softly in her ear, "Don't cry, baby. I'll protect you from now on. No, it's not worth it. Brother Han, I don't deserve to be treated like that by you." She shook her head with tears streaming down her face. Her long eyelashes were stained with tears, and her big, watery eyes were like a bright lake. Silly girl, you're very good. You deserve my wholehearted treatment. He kissed her forehead. His movements were extremely gentle, as if he was treating a priceless treasure. Forget about me. I'm already married. Yizisu choked with sobs and couldn't speak. She leaned into his embrace and sobbed softly. His voice was very soft in her ear. I fell in love with someone. She just happened to be married. I'm not afraid of being cursed. I just don't want her to ignore me. The night scene outside the car window was bustling with people. Yizisu's lonely heart was filled at this moment. It was as if thousands of peach blossoms had bloomed in her heart, fragrant and resplendent. In the end, Shaoihan ignored Yizisu's objections and drove her to the entrance of her neighborhood. Before she got out of the car, Shaoihan gently kissed her on the cheek. Fortunately, it was late at night and there was no one around. She was not worried about being seen by others. She shyly pursed her lips and whispered, Brother Ihan, drive carefully. Shaoihan brushed her lips with his finger and smiled gently. He opened the car door for her in a gentlemanly manner and leaned against the car as he watched her enter the neighborhood. Yizisu took a few steps and couldn't help but turn back. Seeing the handsome man standing under the light, her lips curved. She turned around and walked towards the elevator in a good mood. She did not expect to bump into Jiang Tianhao at the entrance of the elevator. A trace of panic flashed through her heart. She quickly walked forward, hugged his arm, and smiled. Hubby. Jiang Tianhao's eyes were deep and dark. The corners of his lips curled up stiffly. Wifey, it's so late. Where did you go? Yizisu buried her face in his arm and could not see his gloomy eyes. She pouted coquettishly. I went to a classmate's birthday party. I even mentioned it to you this morning. How could you forget? Jiang Tianhao's expression became more and more strange, but his tone was normal. I was too busy. I actually forgot about it. Wifey, did you drive back? Yizisu said coquettishly, No, a classmate sent me back. Was it a guy or a girl? He suddenly lifted her chin with his finger, jealousy written all over his face. She laughed softly. Of course it was a female classmate. Hubby, are you jealous? His furrowed brows slowly relaxed and he smiled. Of course. My wife is so beautiful. There must be a lot of people coveting you. How can I not watch over you? You're so annoying. Ah, the elevator is here. Hubby, let's go in. Jiang Tianhao's eyes drooped slightly as he followed her into the elevator. His hands hanging by his side clenched into fists. Birthday party, female classmate. Heh, what a good excuse. Did she think that he was blind and could not see her getting out of a luxury car? That man was so attentive to her. Even from a distance, he could tell that their relationship was not ordinary. If she was not guilty, why would she lie? That B*TCH actually dared to betray him. He would let her know the price of betraying him. That night, Jiang Tianhao was so passionate that it was scary. He did not wait for her to prepare and forcefully entered her. She was in so much pain that she almost cried. She begged him to be gentler. Although he said comforting words, his movements became more intense. He was like a ferocious beast, devouring her over and over again. The tearing pain made her unable to feel the slightest bit of happiness. She curled up under him and sobbed. He roared and after venting, he hugged her in his arms. His right arm wrapped around her neck with great strength. His pitch-black eyes were cold, but his voice was low and gentle. I'm sorry, wife. I lost control just now. Does it hurt a lot? Yizisu cried like a tearful person. She never knew that being forced to do such a thing would be so painful. She hit his chest resentfully. Woo-woo, I told you to be gentler. It hurts so much. All right. Baby, don't cry. Let me see. Jiang Tianhao ignored her struggles and lifted the blanket covering her body. Sure enough, that place was already muddy, torn, and swollen. It was like a delicate flower that had been ruthlessly ravaged. It was pitiful, but also had a kind of miserable beauty. Suddenly, a tyrannical pleasure rose from his bones. Destroy her. This thought flooded into his mind like a tide. The wind rolled and surged wildly. He suddenly clenched his fists and closed his eyes, temporarily suppressing his desire to torture her. He took out a tube of ointment from the drawer and carefully applied it on her. There was no nitpicking about the feelings of guilt and pity. It was as perfect as the 24 filial piety husband in the past. On this night, Jiang Tianhao seemed to have discovered a new world and stepped into a new world. He released the violent and bloodthirsty in his bones and tried new things on Yizisu. He began to be passionate about cross-dressing games and would even use sex toys to liven things up. Yizisu was tortured to death by him every time. She couldn't believe how cruel this well-dressed man in front of her was. In just a few days, she lost a lot of weight. Every night, the thing she was most afraid of was Jiang Tianhao walking into the bedroom and taking out his latest game. She shivered and cried for mercy, but he was unmoved and still tortured her. After it was over, he was as gentle as before and sincerely begged for her forgiveness. Sex/violence. This word circled in Yizisu's mind. However, she was too embarrassed to say it out loud and didn't dare to tell anyone. She was glorious in front of others, but in private, she swallowed her bitterness into her stomach. She became more and more afraid and didn't want to persist anymore. The idea of divorcing Jiang Tianhao became stronger and stronger. Finally, she asked Xiao Yihan out. This was the first time the two of them met after Xiao Yihan expressed his feelings for her. The two of them agreed to meet at a high-class clubhouse. Yizisu was wearing a high-collared shirt and black high-waisted pants, wrapping herself up tightly. When Xiao Yihan saw her, he frowned and said with pity, "Zisu, why have you lost so much weight? Are you sick?" Yizisu forced a smile. "No, I'm fine. Brother Yihan, let me pour you a cup of tea." Under Xiao Yihan's suspicious gaze, her slender fingers grasped the purple clay teapot and slowly poured the tea. As she poured the tea, the red marks on her wrist naturally appeared. She didn't notice it and smiled slightly. "Brother Yihan, please have some tea." Xiao Yihan didn't take the teacup. He stared coldly at her wrist. In the next second, he grabbed her arm and, under her panicked gaze, quickly rolled up her sleeve. At that moment, it was a ghastly sight. Her fair arm was covered with red marks. His face was ashen. Ignoring her cries of alarm, he rolled up her other sleeve. The same red marks covered her entire arm. His eyes instantly burned with anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "Did Jiang Tianhao do this?" Yizisu's long eyelashes fluttered. Sparkling tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. She hurriedly turned her head and wiped her tears. She said stubbornly, "It wasn't him. I accidentally fell." "Brother Yihan, don't misunderstand." "Fell?" Xiao Yihan was so angry that he laughed and said sternly, "What a fall. I really couldn't tell that you were capable of such a thing. What's so good about that jerk Jiang Tianhao that makes you treat him like this? Don't say any more. I beg you, don't say any more." Yizisu covered her face with both hands. She broke down and cried. She cried very sadly, as if she wanted to pour out all the sadness she had been feeling for the past few days. His slender arms pulled her into his broad chest. Xiao Yihan pressed her head against his chest. His heart ached as he said, "You silly girl. He hurt you so badly, but you still don't want to leave him. Do you have to humiliate yourself like this and make my heart ache?" The person in his arms shook her head vigorously. She sobbed sadly. Her tears wet his clothes. He sighed and gently stroked her hair. "Zisu, marry me. I'll protect you. I won't let you get hurt again." Yizisu buried her head in his arms and sobbed, "I've already been married. I Don't say things like you're not worthy of me. He hurriedly interrupted her. He lifted her head and held her tear-stained face. He said seriously, I don't care what you were like in the past. I just want to have your future. The man in front of her was extraordinarily handsome. His expression was serious, and every word he said was powerful. Her heart couldn't help but tremble. Her tears fell even harder. Her lips trembled slightly. She asked in a deceitful and apprehensive manner, You really don't dislike me? How could I dislike you? Xiao Yihan sounded helpless. It was as if he was facing an unreasonable child. He stroked her hair and said dotingly, I can't wait to love you. Brother Yihan. Yi Zixu was touched and threw herself into his arms. She hugged his waist tightly as if she was hugging her last life-saving straw. The two of them expressed their feelings to each other. In a moment of excitement, they couldn't help but be intimate for a while. When Xiao Yihan saw the scars on her body, his eyes were filled with anger. He couldn't wait to fight with Jiang Tianhao. He was seething with anger. Yi Zixu naturally enjoyed it. She hugged him tightly and comforted him with soft words. The two of them confessed their feelings to each other. Xiao Yihan took pity on the scars on her body and didn't go any further. This made her fall in love with him even more. She felt that he was sincerely treating her well. It was already past 9 o'clock. Jiang Tianhao was working overtime at the company and hadn't returned yet. Yi Zixu leaned against the headboard. Her eyes were slightly downcast as she thought about the divorce. Jiang Tianhao used her to climb up the social ladder and caused her to be so miserable. She wouldn't let him off. Before the divorce, she wanted to take revenge and take back everything he had. These things originally belonged to her. Attention, Xinwu 799. Chapter 886. Honey, I'm back. Jiang Tianhao pushed open the door and came in. He was holding his coat with one hand and tugging at his tie with the other. There was a hint of tiredness between his brows. Yi Zixu hurriedly got off the bed and helped him untie his tie. She smiled gently. Hubby, you've worked hard. Have you eaten? Yes, I've eaten. I'm going to take a shower first. You should sleep early. Jiang Tianhao hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. This meant that he was going to let her go tonight. Yi Zixu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Her smile became even gentler. I'm not sleepy yet. I'll wait for you. Jiang Tianhao said, okay, and turned to walk to the bathroom. Yi Zixu took out clean underwear and a bathrobe from the closet and sent him to the door. Yi Zixu lay down on her side and closed her eyes to sleep. Her mind was still thinking about things. When Jiang Tianhao finished showering and hugged her from behind, her body suddenly trembled. This was a kind of instinctive fear that she could no longer control. As if he didn't notice, he pulled her into his arms and gently kissed her hair. He whispered, Good night, honey. Good night. Only at this moment did her tense body relax. In the darkness, she opened her eyes and coldly stared at a certain spot. Her bright eyes burned with the flames of hatred. Jiang Tianhao also opened his eyes and stared at the back of her head with a complicated expression. This afternoon, Ji Bowen called him to the office and asked him about his and Yi Zixu's life. He also asked him to treat Yi Zixu well and not let her suffer. He agreed to everything. He also realized that he couldn't mistreat Yi Zixu too much. Otherwise, if she couldn't take it and ran to Ji Bowen to complain, it would definitely cause Ji Bowen to be dissatisfied with him. Alas, he had to endure humiliation for the greater good. The woman in his arms, it would be better to slowly teach her a lesson. After that, Yi Zixu's life got a lot better. Although Yu Xiu was still bothering her, at least Jiang Tianhao was no longer tormenting her. She had time to catch her breath. She discussed with Xiao Yihan that they would not divorce for the time being. She wanted to destroy Jiang Tianhao first. Although Jiang Tianhao was a black-hearted person, he still had real talent and knowledge. Therefore, in just a few months, he was able to shine in the marketing department. As the company's key training target, the task of negotiating between G Group and Global Department Store Group naturally fell on his head. For this reason, Ji Bowen specially called him to the office and told him that he must prepare well and complete the task well. The board of directors attached great importance to this negotiation. If he did well, he would soon be promoted to deputy director of the marketing department. With such a good opportunity to climb up the ranks, Jiang Tianhao naturally would not give up. Global Department Store was the largest department store group in the United Kingdom. They had department stores in all the developed countries. Almost all the clothing brands that could enter Global Department Store were world famous. Global Department Store had an unwritten rule that every year, they would remove the clothing brands with the worst sales in the mall and replace them with brands that they liked. This year, Global Department Store was targeting China's clothing brands. They planned to pick out the most promising brand from China's clothing and bring it into Global Department Store. When the news came out, the entire domestic clothing industry was in an uproar. For so many years, there had not been a single domestic brand that could enter Global Department Store. Once they succeeded, it meant that they had stepped out of the country and into the world. For some small enterprises, this was something that they would never dare to imagine in their lifetime. But now, they all had the opportunity to compete for this spot. Marketing Director Marissa, who was in charge of the selection of brands, had just stepped onto China's soil. Many manufacturers had designs on her and tried all kinds of ways to get close to her. Unfortunately, even if they knew the flight she was on, no one knew what she looked like, let alone her whereabouts. There was simply no way to get close to her. Jiang Tianhao was proud of his talent and disdained to play tricks. Every day, he worked overtime to write the proposal. He was secretly determined to conquer Marissa with his talent. On the other hand, Ji Yuqi also attached great importance to this selection. Her slender fingers tapped lightly on the office desk. Her charming phoenix eyes narrowed slightly as she recalled the situation in her previous life. This selection was held a year earlier than in her previous life. Perhaps it was because of her rebirth that some things had changed due to the butterfly effect. In her previous life, the person who won the selection was Jiang Tianhao. It was because of this that he gained the recognition of his father and the board of directors and climbed to the position of marketing director. Don't underestimate this position. It was the most important step for Jiang Tianhao to get close to the center of power. She snorted coldly. This time, with her around, he could forget about getting his way. Although the G Group's business was important, protecting the G Group was even more important. Thus, she would rather the G Group give up this fat piece of meat to chase him out of the G Group. Moreover, if Free could get this piece of meat, it could be considered as keeping the goodies within the family. The ones who would benefit would be her own family. This was a good deal. The corners of Ji Yuqi's lips curled up, and a determined smile appeared on her exquisite face. Her phone suddenly rang. She stopped smiling and put the phone to her ear. "How's the matter going?" A man's lazy and magnetic voice came from the phone. "Hey, the fish has taken the bait. It's only a matter of time before they file for divorce. I'm still thinking about when to let the mother and daughter meet. Oh, the scene will definitely be exciting. I'm looking forward to it." Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows and laughed softly. "You're really something. No wonder you're the #1 prince." "Of course, I'm a professional." The man laughed softly, but there was a subtle bitterness in his laughter. "Miss, I've already completed half of the task you gave me. How's the matter I gave you going?" Ji Yuqi leaned back in her comfortable chair. Her eyes were filled with warmth as she said calmly, "In a week's time, Dr. Johnson will perform the surgery on Anton. After you've completed your task, you can go to America to accompany her. And will definitely be very happy to see her handsome brother." The person on the other end of the phone was silent for a moment. Then he said slowly in a low voice, "Has anyone ever told you that you're actually not a bad person?" Ji Yuqi was stunned. Complex emotions flashed past her eyes. Her voice was cold. "That's because you don't understand the complete me. You don't have to thank me. I'm just doing things according to our agreement." The man laughed softly. This time, there was joy in his laughter. Why do I feel like you're angry? Is it fun to be treated as a bad person? Ji Yuchi was silent for a second. She didn't answer his question and changed the topic. That's not important. What's important is that I have something I need you to do now. Okay, I'm willing to serve my beautiful princess. The man's teasing laughter was heard. Ji Yuchi's mouth twitched. That guy was simply too indecent. Jiang Tianhao was busy planning the selection of Universal Department Store. Every day, he would leave early and return late. Sometimes, he would even bring his work home to deal with it. He didn't have time to deal with Yi Zhisu. Yi Zhisu had the opportunity to sneak out and go on a date with Xiao Yihan. The two of them had sex in Xiao Yihan's residence for a long time. Yi Zhisu leaned into his arms. Her slender fingers peeled the grape skin and fed the flesh to him. He took the opportunity to suck on her fingers and kiss them. The two of them fooled around for a while. Xiao Yihan said sadly, "Baby, when are you going to divorce him?" "I can't wait." Yi Zhisu smiled and comforted him. "Don't be impatient. He was bullied so badly by Jiang Tianhao. He wants to take revenge on him. You won't disagree, right?" Xiao Yihan's eyes lit up and he was in high spirits. "I thought you couldn't bear to part with him. Since it's revenge, then I'm relieved. Baby, tell me, what do you plan to do?" Yi Zhisu frowned. "Actually, I haven't thought about it yet." Xiao Yihan pinched her nose and laughed. "The news has been abuzz recently. It said that Universal Department Store is going to select a clothing brand in China. Doesn't G Group want to get involved?" "Yes, Jiang Tianhao has been busy with this recently." She suddenly looked up at him and narrowed her eyes. "Brother Yihan, do you have a good idea?" Xiao Yihan raised his eyebrows and said patiently, "What if Jiang Tianhao doesn't get a spot in the selection this time?" Yi Zhisu's eyes narrowed. She smiled and kissed his smooth chin. She said coquettishly, "Brother Yihan, you're so smart." All the clothing companies participating in the selection emailed their plans to Miss Marissa's assistant. A week later, Marissa announced the final list of companies participating in the selection. There were a total of 5 companies, including G Group and Free Company. The final selection was set to be held on Monday at the 5-star hotel where Marissa was staying. Jiang Tianhao had organized the information the night before and put it in his briefcase. Just in case, he even locked his briefcase in the drawer of his desk. At 8:30 a.m. on Monday, Jiang Tianhao walked into the conference room of the 5-star hotel with his briefcase and 2 colleagues. There were already 3 people sitting in the luxuriously decorated conference room. One of them was Qing Sang, who represented Free Company in the selection. She sat in her seat expressionlessly, with a proposal and information in her hands, waiting for Marissa's arrival. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, the heavy wooden door was pushed open. A tall Western beauty with blonde hair and blue eyes walked in slowly in high heels. Her facial features were exquisite, and her blonde hair was tied up high on her head. She wore a tailored professional suit, which made her look capable and candid. Her plump lips curled into a faint smile, and she said in stiff Chinese, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marissa, the marketing director of Global Department Store. It's our first time meeting each other." Everyone in the room responded with a smile. Marissa smiled and nodded. Her beautiful blue eyes turned to the assistant and translator beside her, and she nodded at her. The assistant glanced at everyone and said politely, "Today, I've invited everyone here in the hope of hearing your introduction of your respective clothing brands and future plans. Please start in order. First, Mr. Chen from Aujia Company will come to the stage to give his speech." A handsome middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes stood up and walked towards the podium. His assistant immediately distributed the information to everyone present. The projector projected the beautifully made PowerPoint slides onto the huge screen. The man in a suit on the stage spoke in English. Marissa listened attentively and nodded in agreement from time to time. Jiang Tianhao looked calm and seemed to be listening attentively. In fact, only he knew that the back of his shirt was drenched in sweat. Come and see, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 887. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't nervous. This was the first time he was facing such an important meeting after graduating from university. This meeting could be said to be a turning point in his life. He could only succeed, not fail. Qing Sang calmly glanced at Jiang Tianhao's tightly clenched fingers, and her lips curled into a faint sneer. Next, let's welcome Miss Qing Sang from Free Company. Qing Sang was in fourth place, and the person behind her was Jiang Tianhao. She didn't look nervous at all, and her beautiful face was still expressionless. Her hair was combed neatly, and she wore a professional suit. She actually had the noble and elegant temperament of a queen. Her deep eyes calmly looked down at the audience, and her words were clear, and she calmly and rationally expressed her views. There was always a magnetic field between similar people. Marissa's impression of Qing Sang slowly increased. When Qing Sang finished speaking, she even smiled and clapped, praising her in broken Chinese, excellent. As the person who spoke after Qing Sang, Jiang Tianhao felt even more pressure. He even wanted to pull at his tie, but in the end, he restrained himself. Finally, let's welcome Mr. Jiang from G Group to the stage. Jiang Tianhao took a deep breath and walked up to the stage with steady and confident steps. He inserted the USB drive into the port and opened the folder that he had opened countless times. Click click. The sound of the mouse clicking. When he saw the names of the files displayed on the screen, Jiang Tianhao's pupils suddenly shrank, and his mind went blank. A bone-chilling chill suddenly rose from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, and he was so cold that he almost trembled. The screen was full of wretched file names. Hardcore movies, porn videos, training and abusive sex, handcuffs, candles, small leather whips, and so on. Everyone was stunned by the things on the projection screen, and the room was frighteningly quiet. Cold sweat dripped from Jiang Tianhao's forehead as he hurriedly closed the folder. Unexpectedly, his hand trembled and he clicked on a video. The scene immediately changed to a naked man and woman. The man was using a leather whip to whip the woman, and he was swearing obscenely. The sound of panting and the low voice resounded throughout the entire conference room. More than 10 men present all stared at the projection, dumbfounded. Some with poor self-control even raised small flags and awkwardly crossed their legs to cover their disobedient parts. Qing Sang stared expressionlessly at the unsightly scene, and there was a glimmer of brilliance hidden in her deep eyes. Marissa's female assistant was already blushing with shame. A trace of displeasure flashed across Marissa's eyebrows, but her tone was still calm. She said in English, "Mr. Jiang, you really know how to joke. However, our time is limited. Please start your presentation quickly." Jiang Tianhao's handsome cheeks were red with embarrassment. He wanted to dig a hole and bury himself in it. He clenched his teeth and tried to calm down. He quickly closed the video, unplugged the USB flash drive, and rummaged in his briefcase for a long time before he found an identical USB flash drive from the bottom. He opened it carefully. This time, he finally found the right one. After the embarrassing scene just now, Jiang Tianhao was so guilty that he didn't dare to look at the eyes of the audience. When he was explaining, he kept making mistakes. It wasn't easy for him to stutter and finish his presentation. The moment he walked off the podium, he knew that he was finished. After Marissa and her assistant discussed it for a while, they announced the result on the spot. Free Company won the selection. Qing Sang was not surprised. She politely shook hands with Marissa and thanked her for thinking so highly of her. Marissa joked, "Miss Qing Sang, are all the women in the workplace in China as good as you?" Qing Sang curled her lips. "Miss Marissa, you flatter me. My boss is better than me. By the way, she is also a woman." "Wow, that's really unexpected. I thought that the status of women in the workplace in China wasn't high." Marissa seemed to like Qing Sang very much. She walked side by side with her, and the two left laughing and chatting. Soon, only Jiang Tianhao and his colleagues were left in the conference room. One of the colleagues sneered, "I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. You don't care about the occasion and just do whatever you want." Another colleague immediately said, "The Universal Department Store's quota was taken by another company. The company will definitely hold us responsible." "Tianhao, this time, it's not that I don't want to help you." Jiang Tianhao's face was ashen. He put his hands on the table and gritted his teeth. "Don't worry, I won't drag you down." These words were said through gritted teeth, but the two colleagues didn't care what kind of mood he was in. After getting the answer they wanted, they looked at each other and smiled in a way that only the other person could understand. In less than half a day, Jiang Tianhao became famous. His name swept through the entire clothing industry. As long as he was mentioned, everyone would talk about his strong taste. Even the G group lost face. Bam! A thick stack of documents was slammed on the table. Ji Bowen roared at Jiang Tianhao with a face full of anger. "What the hell are you doing? It's bad enough that you didn't get the quota, but you also humiliated the company." Jiang Tianhao lowered his head. "Chairman, I know it's too late to say anything. I'm willing to take all the responsibility." You, Ji Bowen pointed at Jiang Tianhao's nose. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. During the board meeting just now, he was besieged by a group of shareholders. They all said that he didn't know how to pick people. They also said that he was nepotistic and put people who didn't have the ability to commit crimes into the company. The shareholder who often went against him even used this to threaten him to give up the position of chairman. And all of this was because of Jiang Tianhao. He shouldn't have been soft-hearted and let Jiang Tianhao enter the G group. Jiang Tianhao saw that he was angry, but he did not try to defend himself. He only lowered his head respectfully, as if he was admitting his mistake. His slightly downcast eyes were filled with hatred, and his fingers hanging by his legs were tightly clenched into fists. Ji Bowen was so angry that his blood rushed to his head. He felt a metallic taste in his throat. His chest felt uncomfortable. He supported himself with one hand on the desk and said with difficulty, "Get out." Jiang Tianhao raised his head to look at him. His face was pale. He opened his mouth and gasped for breath. He pressed one hand on his chest and the other hand rubbed the drawer as if he was looking for something. "Father-in-law, are you okay?" Ji Bowen had already taken out a medicine bottle. He poured out 2 pills and swallowed them. When his chest felt better, he said sternly, "Get out. I don't want to talk to you right now." Jiang Tianhao didn't say anything. He obediently left the room. His eyes, which were covered by his fringe, were filled with hostility. When he came out of the chairman's office, he was greeted by all kinds of colorful gazes. Some were mocking, some were watching a good show, some were indifferent, and some were adding insult to injury. The only thing missing was sympathy. He didn't need sympathy. He looked around coldly and walked away expressionlessly. Tisk, what's there to be proud of? He just married a good wife. I didn't expect him to be an honest man. He's actually a gentle beast. You can never judge a book by its cover. Shoo, keep your voice down. But I do sympathize with his wife. Do you think he'll use those methods on his wife? Ugh, so perverted. The voices of those discussions weren't loud or soft, but it was just enough to reach Jiang Tianhao's ears. He walked past them expressionlessly as if he didn't hear them. Before he walked out of the office, he slowly turned his head. His cold eyes were filled with hatred. It was like the fire of hell. He slowly swept his gaze over each and every one of them as if he wanted to engrave their faces into his heart. That malicious gaze made people shudder, and everyone subconsciously shut their mouths. That afternoon, the Human Resources Department issued a punishment. Jiang Tianhao's 1-month bonus was deducted. It seemed like a light punishment, but only he knew that his dream of being promoted was shattered. It was extremely difficult to regain Ji Bowen's recognition. "Hubby, you're back. How was it? Did the selection go smoothly?" The moment Jiang Tianhao rang the doorbell, Yi Zhisu immediately opened the door and considerately took the briefcase from his hands. Jiang Tianhao stared at her coldly without saying a word. The smile on Yi Zisu's face froze. She said softly, "Hubby, what's wrong? Did it not go well? Don't take it to heart. You'll have another chance next time." She wanted to continue speaking, but Jiang Tianhao grabbed her wrist and strode into the bedroom. "Ah, it hurts. Hubby, be gentler." Her wrist was gripped tightly by him. It hurt so much that she frowned. But he didn't seem to hear it. He dragged her into the bedroom and threw her onto the bed. He quickly loosened his tie and took off his jacket. Before she could react, he had already leaned on top of her. His face was as cold as ice as he asked coldly, "Did you do this?" Yi Zisu shrunk back uneasily. "Hubby, what are you talking about? I really don't understand." "You don't understand?" Jiang Tianhao smiled maliciously. He suddenly bent over and used both hands to rip open her dress. His right hand rubbed under the bed for a moment, then he pulled out a black leather whip and whipped her body. "Ah!" Yi Zisu screamed and rolled on the bed. Her messy clothes had already slipped off, revealing her snow-white skin. Jiang Tianhao's eyes were burning with anger. His tyrannical aura swelled again. He gritted his teeth and whipped her again. Red marks instantly spread all over her body. He cursed as he whipped her, "B*TCH, you betrayed me. You betrayed me." He had two identical USB drives. One contained documents, and the other contained erotic movies. Only this B*TCH knew his secret. She must have secretly stuffed the USB drive into his briefcase. "Woo-woo. Hubby, stop hitting me. It hurts. Hubby, I beg you, stop hitting me." Even though her body was used to this kind of pain, Yi Zisu still couldn't bear this kind of humiliation. She cried and begged for mercy. She trembled and curled into a ball, but it was no use. It only stimulated Jiang Tianhao's tyrannical nature. The demon that had been imprisoned in the bottom of his heart for a long time was released. He was so excited that his eyes turned red. He simply threw away the whip and pulled out his belt. The whip was a sex toy, so it was relatively safe. Even if he whipped it hard, it wouldn't cause too much harm to the abused person. But the belt was different. It could whip a person to death. So, when he raised the belt, Yi Zisu's eyes were full of fear. She rolled on the ground in horror and stumbled toward the door. He kicked her leg and she immediately fell to the ground. She didn't have time to get up, but the belt had already hit her face. She wailed in pain and rolled around on the cold floor. There was no intact skin on her back. There were crisscrossing scars and bloodstains. She cried for Yu Xiu, praying that this nominal mother-in-law could save her life. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 888. Yu Xiu stood outside the master bedroom, hesitating. She knew that her son was abusing Yi Zisu. She had thought of persuading him to stop, but she gave up in the end because of the hatred between the Jiang and Ji families. "Mother-in-law, save me. Please save me. Hubby, spare me. I won't do it again. Hubby." Yi Zisu's cries were more miserable than before. They penetrated the door and pierced Yu Xiu's eardrums. She was afraid that someone would die, so she finally reached out and knocked on the door. "Tianhao, forget it. Don't hit her. Be careful not to kill her." The sound of slapping and crying continued. Yu Xiu couldn't take it anymore. She opened the door with the key and saw a mess. Yi Zisu was lying on the ground like a dead dog. Her back was a bloody mess, and Jiang Tianhao was half naked. His eyes were terrifyingly red, and his face was as ferocious as a demon. He had no rationality and only knew how to whip her over and over again. Yu Xiu was scared out of her wits. She quickly grabbed his wrist and said incoherently, son, look at me. I'm your mother. Don't hit her anymore. She'll die if you hit her again." Son. Tianhao, what's wrong? Don't scare your mother. Tianhao, Jiang Tianhao's mind was in a mess. A familiar female voice kept ringing in his ears. He turned stiffly and looked at the worried face of the woman in front of him. His red eyes gradually regained their clarity. He let go of his hand and the belt fell to the ground. He saw Yi Zixu lying lifelessly on the floor. Her body was a bloody mess. He suddenly panicked. He threw himself on her and checked her breathing. If she was dead, he was done for. Fortunately, she was still breathing. He suddenly raised his head and shouted at the panicked Yu Xiu, "Mom, call an ambulance." Yu Xiu picked up the phone and was about to make a call when Jiang Tianhao suddenly thought of something and shouted, "No, Mom, don't call. You can't send her to the hospital." If he sent her to the hospital, the doctor would be able to tell at a glance how she got her injuries and might call the police. Yu Xiu was stunned. Then what should we do? Don't you care about her? Jiang Tianhao frowned and thought for a moment. He quickly walked into the bedroom, took out a clean blanket, and wrapped it around her from head to toe. He then carried her and said quickly, "Mom, I'll take her to the clinic. You stay at home and don't tell anyone about her injury." Okay. I got it. Hurry up and go." Jiang Tianhao pursed his lips and carried Yi Zixu downstairs. After stuffing her into the back seat of the car, he drove the car around the brightly lit streets. Finally, he saw a small clinic with its lights on in an alley. He stopped the car without hesitation and carried her out. The night shift was a man in his 40s. He had a round face and a chubby body. When he smiled, his eyes narrowed into slits and he gave off a sly vibe. Jiang Tianhao stuffed a thick stack of money into his hands and said in a low voice, "My wife accidentally fell and hurt herself. Could you please treat her wound, doctor? Don't worry. With me here, your wife will be fine." The doctor smiled and put away the red packet as if nothing had happened. He lifted the blanket and his pupils shrank. However, his expression didn't change and he said calmly, "Wait outside for a moment. I'm going to treat the patient's wound." Jiang Tianhao retreated out of the room. The doctor carefully examined Yi Zixu's wound and shook his head. It was obvious that she was beaten by her husband. She was really pitiful. However, it was none of his business. As long as he could earn money, it was fine. The doctor spent nearly half an hour treating Yi Zixu's wound. He applied medicine and gave her a bottle of anti-inflammatory for drip. Then, he opened the door and signaled Jiang Tianhao to go in. Yi Zixu was still unconscious. Jiang Tianhao sat beside her and saw her frown. Her face was pale and she looked like she was in pain. He only felt his heart was in a mess. He originally wanted to teach her a lesson, but he didn't expect that he would lose control of his emotions and beat her until she was seriously injured. "Ah. Don't hit me. Sob. It hurts. It hurts." Even though she was unconscious, she didn't sleep well. She kept having nightmares and talking in her sleep. Tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Her pitiful appearance really made one's heart ache. Jiang Tianhao didn't feel any heartache. He only felt a headache. He didn't know how to comfort her when she woke up. He also didn't know how to explain it to her parents. He used a wet towel to wipe the tears on her face and coaxed her gently, "It's okay, honey. I won't hit you again. It's my fault." His words didn't have the effect of comforting her. Yi Zixu cried even more sadly. It was as if she was having a nightmare. She struggled violently and kicked her legs. She cried out miserably, "It hurts. It hurts. Let go of me, what's wrong?" The doctor rushed over. Jiang Tianhao said awkwardly, "It's nothing. My wife is having a nightmare. Sorry to trouble you." The doctor didn't seem to care. He said, "Call me if you need anything." Then he left. Jiang Tianhao stood guard for the whole night. It wasn't until the next morning that Yi Zixu woke up. The moment she saw Jiang Tianhao, she trembled reflexively. His face was full of guilt. He knelt in front of her on one knee and held her hand. He said softly, "Honey, I was wrong. I drank too much yesterday. That's why I did that. Please forgive me, okay?" Yizisu flung his hand away. She turned around and buried her head in the blanket, crying. He hurriedly tried to remove the blanket from her head. "Honey, don't be like this. Be careful not to suffocate. It's all my fault. I really know that I was wrong. I won't hurt you again." A man's oath was like bullshit. Only the sound of it could be heard after it was released. Yizisu would never believe his vows again, but she would continue to put on an act. She cried very sadly, as if her heart was broken. No matter what he said, she would not listen to him. Jiang Tianhao had no choice. "He called you show over." The mother and son went up together to persuade Yizisu. Yizisu still didn't listen. She cried until her voice was hoarse. Jiang Tianhao and his mother swore that they would never abuse her again. Only then did she slowly stop crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked at Jiang Tianhao pitifully and said in a hoarse voice, "Hubby, I want to go home." Jiang Tianhao was overjoyed. He hurriedly said, "Okay, I'll take you home now." Yizisu shook her head and said softly, "I want to go back to the Ji family." Jiang Tianhao's expression changed. He was pained and guilty. "Wife, are you still not willing to forgive me?" Her eyelashes fluttered, and her tears fell again. She seemed to feel that it was inappropriate, so she quickly wiped them away and explained softly, "Hubby, don't let your imagination run wild. I just miss my mother." She looked at him with her big, watery eyes, full of expectation. "Hubby, is that okay? Can I go home?" If he didn't agree to such a small request, then wouldn't his oath be insincere? Thinking about this, Jiang Tianhao did not reject her immediately. He stroked her hair and said softly, "You haven't recovered yet. Go home and stay for 2 days. When you've recovered, I'll accompany you back to your parents' home to visit mother-in-law." Yizisu nodded weakly. Jiang Tianhao's smile became gentler. His hanging heart fell back into his chest. He thought it would be difficult to deal with her, but he didn't expect it to be so easy. He was a little smug. It seemed that she still loved him a lot. She could even forgive him for being treated violently. That joy only lasted for a day. The next day, Jiang Tianhao was furious. It turned out that it was all a trap set by Yizisu. Yizisu agreed to go home with him because she had hidden a pinhole camera in her bedroom. It recorded the entire process of her being abused by Jiang Tianhao. She had to go back and take the memory card in the camera. After removing the memory card, she took advantage of the time when Jiang Tianhao went to work and Yu Xiu went grocery shopping to pack her luggage. Then, she drove her car back to her parents' home. "Mom, you have to help me." Yizisu immediately threw herself on Chen Tingfang when she returned to the Ji family. She cried miserably and listed Jiang Tianhao's crimes. She even took off her coat to show the evidence, which made Chen Tingfang's heart ache. She called Jiang Tianhao a bastard and scolded him. Yizisu used the scars all over her body to make Chen Tingfang feel sorry for her. She hugged her mother's arm and said sadly, "Mom, I don't want to live with him anymore. Otherwise, I'll be killed by him sooner or later." Divorce decisively. Even if my daughter can't get married, she can't be ruined by that kind of scum. Yizisu took out the memory card and said with tears in her eyes, "Mom, this is evidence of him abusing me. You can't let him go." "Good, as expected of my daughter. I'll make sure he never has a chance to rise again." Chen Tingfang immediately called the Ji family's lawyer and asked him to handle the divorce between Yizisu and Jiang Tianhao. Ji Bowen was furious when he found out about Jiang Tianhao's actions. Even if Zisu wasn't his biological daughter, he still had fatherly feelings for her. He couldn't allow outsiders to bully her like this. He approved of Yizisu and Jiang Tianhao's divorce and informed the HR department to fire Jiang Tianhao. Jiang Tianhao was dumbfounded when he received the lawyer's letter. He couldn't believe that Yi Zissou would divorce him. Was she crazy? Before he could come back to his senses, the HR manager called him to the office and handed him a dismissal letter. Jiang Tianhao said emotionally, "Manager, what does this mean? Didn't the previous punishment already come out?" The HR manager said expressionlessly, "This is a personal message from the chairman. You have to hand over your work today. You don't have to come to work tomorrow." Ji Bowen's message? It must have something to do with Yi Zissou. That be *tch, didn't she just get beaten up? She actually dared to divorce him and kick him out of the G group. How despicable. Jiang Tianhao's handsome face was twisted with anger. He crumpled the dismissal letter into a ball and held it tightly in his hand. He didn't care about handing over his work and drove his car to the Ji family's house at the speed of an airplane. He angrily rushed into the villa. He stood in the empty living room and roared at the second floor, "Yi Zissou, come out. Humph, you've got guts. You actually dared to come here." Chen Tingfang's figure appeared in the corridor on the second floor. She stared at the crazy Jiang Tianhao with disgust and cursed, "You be ****. I handed my daughter over to you and you actually dared to abuse her. Do you think the Ji family is easy to bully?" Jiang Tianhao gritted his teeth and said angrily, "Don't think that your daughter is a good person. If she didn't seduce other people outside, why would I hit her? All of this was caused by her. Call Yi Zissou out. I want to talk to her face to face." Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 889. Bah, you're not clean, yet you dare to falsely accuse my daughter. You're shameless to the extreme. Let me tell you, Jiang Tianhao, if you obediently get a divorce and get out of the G group, I can still spare you this once on account of our past relationship. If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for being rude. I'd like to see how rude you can be. Jiang Tianhao suddenly laughed eerily. He was no longer impatient and instead sat down leisurely on the sofa. He looked coldly at the people upstairs, his eyes clouded over, and his tone was low and slow. "If you don't want Ji Bowen to know what you've done, then call Yi Zissou out." Chen Tingfang's eyes narrowed, and her mind raced. She realized that Jiang Tianhao might have something on her. Just as she was about to say something, Yi Zissou suddenly rushed out of the room, rushed to the railing, and shouted, "Didn't you want to talk to me? Okay, I'll talk to you." "Zissou, don't go." Chen Tingfang grabbed Yi Zissou's arm, her eyes full of worry. "Mom, I'm fine. Trust me, I won't lose out." Yi Zissou took her hand away and smiled at her. The room was very quiet, and they could almost hear each other's breathing. Yi Zissou poured a glass of water for Jiang Tianhao and said indifferently, "Okay, what do you want to talk to me about? Let's talk." Jiang Tianhao looked at the porcelain cup in front of him. His face was printed on the cup, and their names were engraved on the side. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. "You made this yourself on my birthday. The cup you gave me has your face printed on it. I put it in my office and drink from it every day. It's like I'm with you every moment." His tone was a little sad. Yi Zissou couldn't help but recall how they loved each other in the past. She felt a little disappointed, a little regretful, and even more hatred. She loved him so wholeheartedly, but he pretended to love her in order to use her. Her lips curled into a mocking smile, and she said indifferently, "So you still remember? I thought you'd forgotten everything. Jiang Tianhao, touch your conscience and answer me. Have you ever loved me?" Jiang Tianhao was slightly stunned. His face darkened, and he said, "Even now, are you still doubting my love for you?" "Zissou, even though I've done some wrong, it's all because I love you too much. I thought you'd betrayed me, so I was so impulsive." "Oh, is that so?" Yi Zissou didn't comment as she stroked the hair by her ear. She looked straight at him with a calm gaze and said indifferently, "Jiang Tianhao, aren't you tired of pretending to be so affectionate all day long? You really don't have to put on an act in front of me. I know that everything you've done is for revenge. From the beginning to the end, I've only been a chess piece in your hands." Jiang Tianhao's pupils shrank suddenly, and a storm surged in his eyes. How did she know? No wonder she suddenly wanted a divorce. The wall that Jiang Tianhao had built in his heart suddenly collapsed. He no longer had the confidence that he could use true love to move her, but he didn't hide his true self anymore. He suddenly reached out his right hand and pinched her chin. He stared at her with a dark gaze. His tone was gentle, but the words that came out of his mouth made her shudder. Divorce me, haha. Aren't you afraid that I'll expose what you've done? You drugged Ji Yuqi and ordered your good cousin, Chinifei, to ruin her innocence. You asked Xiao Ren to spike Ji Yuqi's wine in an attempt to ruin Ji Yuqi's reputation. Also, that good mother of yours kidnapped Ji Yuqi and colluded with the mafia. If Ji Bowen finds out about this, do you think he'll chase you and your mother out of the Ji family? I'm really curious. He used a lot of strength in his hand, and Yizisu's chin was pinched so hard that a red mark appeared. It was so painful that she was about to cry. She gritted her teeth and kicked his calf hard. He felt the pain and flung her chin away. She quickly stepped back and stood a distance away from him. She said coldly, "Words are no proof. Do you think that Ji Bowen will believe you just because of your words? Stop dreaming." Ha! Who says words are no proof? Jiang Tianhao endured the pain and took out his phone from his pocket. He pressed a button, and the sound of Yizisu and Chen Tingfang plotting to hurt Ji Yuqi immediately rang out in the room. Yizisu's face changed drastically, but she quickly regained her composure and sneered. You have the nerve to bring out such a thing? What a joke. Who knows if you're taking revenge by getting a voice actor to imitate our voices? Other than this, I have something even more interesting. Yizisu had already seen how vicious Jiang Tianhao could be. Of course, she didn't dare to take the risk. She bit her lip and said hatefully, "If you want to lose your reputation and no longer be able to stay in Ning City, then go ahead and expose those so-called evidence. At most, we'll fight to the death. No one will benefit from it." Jiang Tianhao's gaze darkened. What do you mean by that? She sneered. What I mean is that I will announce to the world that you're a pervert who likes to use sex and violence. In the future, no rich miss will dare to marry you. Your dream of becoming a rich man will also be shattered. Not only will G Group not want you, but other companies won't want you either. Do you think everyone will believe you? Huh, what a wonderful reversal. Yizisu returned his words to him. I have something interesting too. If you want to see it, you can see it online in half an hour. How about it? Do you want to take a gamble? You secretly filmed it. Jiang Tianhao glared at her with eyes full of hatred. It seemed like he would pounce on her and tear her to pieces in the next second. Yizisu was suddenly not afraid. This was the Ji family. Could he beat her to death? She laughed mockingly. Yes, such an interesting scene of violence. How can I not record it as a memento? As soon as she finished speaking, Jiang Tianhao suddenly pounced on her. His hands gripped her neck tightly. His face was ferocious as he said sternly, "Hand it over, or I'll kill you." Yizisu looked up with a strong sense of suffocation. Her beautiful eyes were filled with hatred. She said hoarsely, "Kill me. After you kill me, you'll go to jail and wait to be shot. Your mother won't have a son to take care of her, so she'll die a miserable death. With the two of you dying with me, why should I be afraid of death?" Jiang Tianhao slowly let go of her neck and took 2 steps back. In just a few seconds, he became a well-dressed man again. He tidied up his messy clothes and said calmly, "I agree to the divorce, but you have to agree to a few conditions." Half an hour later, Jiang Tianhao walked out of Yizisu's room. Chen Tingfang glared at him and asked the servants to send him away. She then went into her daughter's room. "Zisu, what did that bastard say? He didn't bully you, right?" Yizisu's heart warmed. Her mother would always love her the most. Her eyes reddened and she said softly, "Mom, I've reached an agreement with him. We'll divorce peacefully." "Mom, I'm sorry." I was too ignorant in the past and didn't see through that man's true colors. Now that things have turned out like this, it's all my own fault. Yes, you stinking girl. I advised you not to marry him, but you didn't listen. Chen Tingfang kept scolding her, but her eyes were gentle. She pulled her daughter into her arms and wiped her tears. Okay, don't cry. You're already so old, yet you're still crying. Don't you find it embarrassing? Mom, Yi Zixu threw herself into her arms and couldn't stop crying. Chen Tingfang comforted Yi Zixu for a while before she slowly stopped crying. She told her about the agreement with Jiang Tianhao in detail. Neither of us can use the evidence in our hands to threaten each other, and we can't tell the public the real reason for the divorce. We can only say that our personalities don't match. In terms of property, the house will be mine, and the car will be his. Chen Tingfang was angry when she heard that. Why? Our Ji family paid for the house and the car. Why should we give him the car? Mom, it's better to offend a gentleman than a villain. Jiang Tianhao is a villain. If giving him the car can shut his mouth and stop him from pestering me, I'll give it to him. Besides, he's been kicked out of the Ji group by Uncle Ji. He can forget about basking in the glory of the Ji group in the future. He has no connections and no money. It's not impossible for us to deal with him secretly in the future. Chen Tingfang smiled approvingly. You're right, Zixu. You're much more mature than before. Mom can finally rest assured. After Yi Zixu and Jiang Tianhao reached an agreement, they divorced quietly. Yi Zixu gave them 3 days to move out of her house. Yu Xiu cursed and scolded everyone in the Ji family. Jiang Tianhao quickly accepted reality. He quickly rented a small suite with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room and moved in with Yu Xiu. However, it was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. The two of them were used to living in a luxurious house. They were used to living in a life where their clothes and food were served. They were not used to living in an unfurnished and cramped house. Yu Xiu scolded Yi Zixu again. Jiang Tianhao became more and more irritated. He was busy looking for a job every day and had to listen to his mother's nagging. It was really annoying. Jiang Tianhao had lost face in the entire clothing industry. Naturally, the relevant companies were not willing to hire him. He was too embarrassed to go to their door and be humiliated. He thought highly of himself. He didn't want to go to small companies, and the big companies didn't want him. He procrastinated for a month and was still at home waiting for a job. In the end, he had to lower his sights and enter a small construction company. On the first day of work, he drove the BMW that Ji Bowen had given him when he got married, which attracted a lot of attention and suspicion. Even the HR manager tactfully reminded him not to be too ostentatious. It was inevitable that he would be ostracized by his new colleagues. Jiang Tianhao sat alone at the bar and drank alone. He looked at the man and woman dancing on the dance floor, and the wine in his mouth was so bitter that it was difficult to swallow. He was originally the pride of the school. He was originally the son-in-law of a rich family. He had the ambition to take back what belonged to him. Why had he fallen to such a state? He drank 1 glass after another. His vision gradually became blurry. He knew that he was drunk. He stood up shakily and staggered out. He wanted to go home. He lowered his head and did not look in front of him. He accidentally bumped into a tall and burly man. He lost his balance and sat on the ground. The burly man grabbed his tie and lifted him up from the ground. He said angrily, "Motherf asterisk cur, don't you have eyes?" Jiang Tianhao felt uncomfortable being grabbed by the strong man. He frowned and was about to speak when his stomach churned. He couldn't control himself and vomited into the strong man's arms. The strong man closed his eyes in disgust and angrily punched Jiang Tianhao. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 890. F***ck, that's disgusting. I'll beat you to death today. The burly man quickly took off his clothes. His arms were bare as he punched and kicked Jiang Tianhao, who was sprawled on the ground. The people around them watched anxiously, and no one dared to step forward to stop them. It was only when Jiang Tianhao lay motionless on the ground that the owner of the bar was afraid that he would die. Only then did he step forward to persuade Jiang Tianhao. The brawny man spat on the ground and cursed, "What bad luck." He then swaggered away. In the bar, the music was still playing. The men and women dancing on the dance floor were not disturbed by the scene at all. Yi Zixu was in Xiao Yihan's arms. Her sarcastic gaze fell on Jiang Tianhao, who was sprawled on the ground like a dead dog. Xiao Yihan bit her earlobe and chuckled softly. "Are you satisfied, my baby?" Yi Zixu turned her face to the side and kissed his lips. She whispered, "I'm very satisfied. Thank you for helping me vent my anger." The two of them kissed more and more passionately. In the end, Xiao Yihan pressed her body tightly against his chest and whispered, "Let's go back to the car." She didn't say anything and bit his chest. He took a deep breath and said, "Little vixen, see how I'll deal with you later." She was like a seductive vixen as she lay in his arms and giggled happily. He gritted his teeth, carried her horizontally, and walked out quickly. Jiang Tianhao happened to be sprawled in the middle of the road. He didn't hesitate to step over him. Yi Zixu leaned her face on Xiao Yihan's shoulder and stared at Jiang Tianhao with a half-smile. Her lips parted slightly as if she was saying something. Jiang Tianhao's entire body was in pain, and his cheeks were swollen like a pig's head. He struggled to open his eyes, and in a daze, he saw Yi Zixu lying on top of a man, giving him a strange smile. Jiang Tianhao's blood rushed to his heart, and his vision turned black as he fainted. After the divorce, Jiang Tianhao was down and out, but Yi Zixu was like a fish in water. She was rejuvenated. She started a new relationship without telling her family. She had a romantic relationship with Xiao Yihan and finally crossed the last line of defense. After coming out of the bar, the two of them were entangled endlessly. From the car to Xiao Yihan's apartment, the two of them hugged and kissed passionately. The wind howled throughout the night. The next day, when Yi Zixu woke up, she heard the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. The frosted glass door projected Xiao Yihan's tall and straight figure. She couldn't help but think of the wind from last night, and her cheeks burned. She got up weakly. Her clothes were torn and she couldn't wear them anymore. She casually picked up Xiao Yihan's shirt and put it on. Beep beep. Xiao Yihan's phone suddenly rang. It was the sound of a text message. She hesitated whether she should peek, but in the end, curiosity won out. She quietly picked up the phone. The sender was Sister Chen. She knew that Xiao Yihan used to call her mother Sister Chen. Why would her mother send Yihan a text message? The more she thought about it, the more curious she became. Just as she was about to open the phone to take a look, she suddenly heard the door open. She quickly put the phone back and turned around with a smile. "Good morning." "Good morning, baby." Xiao Yihan didn't see her little action. His handsome face bloomed with a bright smile. He walked to her side and leaned over to give her a hot morning kiss. After a while, he let go of her and smiled gently. "Baby, go wash up first. I'll make breakfast for you." She blushed and nodded. After she finished washing up, Xiao Yihan was still busy in the kitchen. Even though he was wearing an apron, it didn't affect his handsomeness at all. Feeling her gaze, he turned his head and smiled gently. "Don't stand here. It's too smoky. Watch TV or play on the computer for a while. Breakfast will be ready soon." Yi Zixu's heart softened. He was the first man to cook for her. She thought that she had really fallen in love with him. The silver phone was placed on the coffee table. It was obvious that the owner had moved it. Yi Zixu picked up the phone and opened it to take a look. The text message from Sister Chen had disappeared. She flipped through her inbox. There was not a single message from Sister Chen. They were all text messages with her. She then checked the call records. There was also no message from Sister Chen. What was going on? Could it be that he and her mother were hiding something from her? Otherwise, why would he delete the text messages with her mother? Yi Zhisu frowned. She began to feel suspicious. Beep beep. The phone rang again. This time, Yi Zhisu didn't hesitate. She immediately opened the message from Sister Chen. I miss you. Let's meet at the usual place this afternoon. She turned pale with fright. Her fingers trembled and she almost threw the phone to the ground. She held the phone tightly with both hands and muttered to herself, No, I must have misunderstood. Mom and Ihan are good friends. That's right, that's it. Baby, what are you talking to yourself about? Xiao Ihan walked out of the kitchen with a plate in each hand. He had a warm smile on his handsome face. Yi Zhisu was shocked. She gripped the phone tightly to hide her panic. She smiled stiffly and said, No, nothing. It's done. Do you need my help? No, it's time to eat. Oh, okay. Yi Zhisu hid the phone behind her back. When she walked to the sofa, she secretly threw his phone on the sofa when he wasn't paying attention. Yi Zhisu ate the meal blandly. On one hand, she couldn't help but wonder about the relationship between Xiao Yihan and Chen Tingfang. On the other hand, she was worried that Xiao Yihan would find out that she had secretly read his text messages. She was really conflicted and frustrated. Xiao Yihan was oblivious to it. He treated her gently and considerately as usual. He wiped the milk from the corner of her mouth with his finger and chuckled. Baby, you're so cute. Yi Zhisu wanted to reply with a smile, but she couldn't. After struggling for a long time, she finally mustered up the courage to say, Han, I heard your phone ring just now, and then I read your text messages. Do you blame me? A complicated look flashed across Xiao Yihan's eyes, but he maintained his smile. Silly, it's not a big deal. Why would I blame you? He took a sip of milk and asked casually, Who sent it? Yi Zhisu stared into his eyes without blinking and said slowly, It's from my mom. She said she wants to meet you at the usual place. Xiao Yihan's eyes flickered, and his smile was a little unnatural. So it's Sister Chen. Some time ago, she said she wanted to start a small business and asked me to give her some advice. She probably asked me out to talk about this. Yi Zhisu's fingers clasped the table tightly. Her throat was dry. She was very good at reading people's expressions. She was sure that Ihan was hiding something from her. She slowly took a breath and smiled. Since you have something to do in the afternoon, you don't have to accompany me. I'll go to the concert with my friends. Xiao Yihan held her hand and said apologetically, I'm sorry, baby. When I'm done, I'll make it up to you. It's okay. Business is more important. Yi Zhisu's smile was very beautiful, but her heart was very uncomfortable. A chill actually stood her up for her mother. Between them. She couldn't think about it anymore. If she continued to think about it, she would go crazy. In the Grand Hotel lobby, a handsome man and a fashionably dressed woman wearing sunglasses walked side by side. When they stepped into the elevator, Yi Zhisu immediately came out from behind a pillar in the lobby and quickly chased after them. The elevator stopped on the 12th floor. Yi Zhisu watched as her mom, Chen Tingfang, held Xiao Yihan's arm and walked into room 1205. Why couldn't they talk in a cafe or a restaurant? Why did they have to talk face to face in a hotel room? Yi Zhisu couldn't control her imagination anymore. She gritted her teeth and went downstairs to book the room next to theirs. Like a gecko, she stuck her whole body to the wall and tried to eavesdrop on what was going on in the room next door. However, the soundproofing of the hotel room was quite good, so she couldn't hear anything. She stomped her feet in frustration and picked up her phone to call the front desk. A few minutes later, the sound of knocking echoed in the empty corridor. Then, a sweet female voice said, Hello, I'm the hotel's waitress. The waitress waited at the door for about half a minute before the person in the room opened the door. A handsome and tall figure stood in front of her. His upper body was bare, and there was a towel wrapped around his waist. His firm chest muscles were well defined, and there was no excess fat. His figure was simply amazing. The waitress's cheeks flushed red. She looked down in panic and said softly, "Sir, the champagne and steak you ordered are here." Xiaoyihan glanced at the food cart behind her and frowned unhappily. "I think you're mistaken. I didn't order these things." "Ah." The waitress looked up in shock. "You didn't order them?" Xiaoyihan frowned even more. "No. I am sorry to disturb you." The waitress hurriedly bowed apologetically. When she looked up again, the man in front of her had already retreated into the room and slammed the door shut. She let out a long sigh and muttered to herself, "How could this be? It's clearly room 1205. After the waitress pushed the food cart away, Yizisu walked out from behind the huge vase. She clenched her fists and bit her lip so hard that it almost broke. She saw clearly that Xiaoyihan had come out with only a towel wrapped around him. Did he need to take a shower to talk business? There must be something going on between him and Qin Tingfang. She slammed the door shut and roared angrily in the empty room. She punched the pillow with both fists and gritted her teeth as she roared, Why? Why are you stealing my man when you're my mother? Ah, I hate you, Qin Tingfang, I hate you to death." Qin Tingfang was an old woman. Xiaoyihan couldn't possibly like her. She must have seduced him and forced him. Despicable, this was too despicable. Yizisu flew into a rage. She grabbed the vase on the coffee table with both hands and slammed it against the wall. Bang! The broken pieces scattered all over the floor. She was still angry, so she picked up the ashtray and threw it against the wall as if she was hitting someone's head. Then she stared at the scratched wall and laughed hysterically. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a frightening viciousness and resentment. She whispered word by word, "Even if you're my mother, don't even think about stealing my man." Clang! A faint sound came from next door. Qin Tingfang was pressed under Xiaoyihan's body. She suddenly felt uneasy and avoided his intense kiss. She frowned and said, "Ihan, I think I heard something." Xiaoyihan bit her neck and said in a muffled voice, "Don't worry about it. Focus." Ah, As he teased her skillfully, she threw her worries to the back of her mind. She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck and pressed him closer to her. She indulged herself and sank into a sea of desire with him. The door to the next room finally opened. Seeing Qin Tingfang nestled in Xiaoyihan's arms like a little bird, Yizisu's hatred for Qin Tingfang deepened as she watched their backs disappear at the end of the corridor. Awesome novel, Xinwu 799. Chapter 891. That night, Yizisu did not return home. She stayed over at Xiaoyihan's house and passionately made love to him. She had a crazy thought in her mind. She wanted to squeeze him dry so that he would never be able to fool around with Qin Tingfang again. She knew that her thoughts were childish, but there was no way she could control it. Late at night, Xiaoyihan hugged her in his arms and fell into a deep sleep. She tried to call out his name, but he did not respond. She quietly withdrew from his arms and rummaged around the room barefooted. She wanted to find evidence of Qin Tingfang and Ihan having an affair. She wanted to threaten Qin Tingfang so that she would not be allowed to interact with Ihan again. After searching for more than half an hour, she did not find anything. She did not even find a group photo. She sat in front of the desk dejectedly and messed up her hair with both hands. She was in an extremely bad mood. She inadvertently raised her head and saw the laptop on the desk. Her eyes suddenly lit up and she quickly turned it on. Password, what was the password? She bit her finger and entered Xiaoyihan's birthday. No. Then she entered Qin Tingfang's birthday. Still, it was not right. The third time, she hesitantly entered her own birthday. She actually succeeded. Yizisu felt a little better. She thought that Xiaoyihan must love her. Otherwise, he would not have used her birthday as the password. There were many photos and videos stored on the laptop. Yizisu opened them one by one to check, but she did not find what she was looking for. Just as she was about to give up, she suddenly saw a new folder without a name. She opened it with trembling fingers. The folder was filled with erotic photos and an unsightly video. Yizisu felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her face was as white as a sheet because the male and female leads in those photos and videos were Xiao Yihan and Chen Tingfang. Those pictures were very graphic. In addition to all kinds of poses, there were also cosplay scenes. The most disgusting one was the one where Chen Tingfang wore a queen's outfit and stepped on Xiao Yihan. Yizisu couldn't believe what she was seeing. She couldn't wait to smash the computer and destroy the evidence. She wrapped her arms around her shoulders and felt extremely cold. The mother and daughter actually fell in love with the same man and even had sex with the same man. Hee, how ironic. You saw everything. A low and hoarse voice came from behind. Yizisu turned around stiffly. Xiao Yihan was standing in front of her with his upper body bare. His dark eyes were as deep as the sea, and his handsome face was expressionless. He was like a stone statue, lifeless. His tone was stiff and mechanical. Very good, you finally realized. You definitely can't accept it. Let's break up. Why? Yizisu was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She suddenly jumped up from the chair and shouted in a sharp voice, "Why are you with her? You know very well that she's my mother." "I'm sorry." He looked down and stared at his feet coldly as if none of this had anything to do with him. "I don't need you to be sorry. I need an explanation." Yizisu threw herself into his arms and grabbed his arm emotionally. She screamed hysterically, "Explain. Hurry up and explain to me." Xiao Yihan still looked down and clenched her fists. Her lips curled into a bitter smile as she said, "There's nothing to explain. I'm dirty. I'm not good enough for you. Let's break up." Slap, the crisp sound shocked the two of them. Yizisu's right hand was frozen in midair. She stared blankly at the palm print on his face. Tears rolled down her cheeks and she suddenly covered her face. She cried heartbreakingly, "How could you do this to me? I love you so much. Why did you lie to me? Have you never loved me? You're a liar, a liar." Xiao Yihan's body trembled. He finally looked up slowly and stared at Yizisu. At that moment, Yizisu finally saw his eyes clearly. His dark eyes were filled with pain. He didn't say a word and just looked at her sadly. It made her heart ache. In the silent night, only her sorrowful cries could be heard. After some time, he spoke again. His voice was hoarse like sandpaper. It's not what?" She stared at him with tears in her eyes. Her heart was filled with anticipation. He took a few steps forward with difficulty and hugged her tightly. He said painfully, "It's not that I've never loved you. I like you. I like you a lot." He said the last few words very softly, but Yizisu heard them clearly. She couldn't help but bawl and hit his chest. "Liar, liar. Since you like me, why did you sleep with her?" "I'm sorry." Her head was pressed against his chest. She couldn't see his expression, but from his deep voice, she could hear his sadness. Since he was sad, why did he do such a thing? Her tears fell like rain. "Why? Tell me why. Why did you save me from the darkness and then push me into the abyss with your own hands?" "No, I can't say." Xiao Yihan cupped her face and kissed her gently. His dark eyes were filled with love and pain. "Just pretend that nothing happened between us. Forget about me." After saying that, he let go of her resolutely and turned around. He didn't look at her again. His voice was cold and indifferent. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room. You can leave early tomorrow morning. Don't come looking for me again." "Xiao Yihan, I won't allow you to leave. If you don't make things clear today, I'll..." Yi Zissou shouted anxiously at his back. Suddenly, she saw a small craft knife in the pen holder on the desk. She quickly took it out and pressed it against her chest. She said anxiously, "If you don't make things clear, I'll die in front of you." Xiao Han turned around abruptly and saw that she was holding a small knife in her hand. His expression changed drastically and his eyes flashed with panic. He quickly reached out to stop her. "Zissou, put the knife down. Don't do anything stupid." "No, I won't put it down. If you don't make things clear, I'll die in front of you. Anyway, you don't want me anymore. What's the point of me living?" Her eyes were hazy with tears. His face was pale and he shook his head sadly. "Why do you have to force me? Because I love you." Yi Zissou tightened her grip on the knife. The tip of the knife pierced her skin and dark red beads of blood flowed out. It was especially glaring on her snow-white skin. She endured the pain and said, "If you don't tell me, I'll really stab myself in the heart." "Stop. Don't continue." Xiao Han suddenly roared. His eyes were about to split open and his handsome face was contorted in pain. "I'm not worth it for you to do that. You're right. I'm a liar. The reason why I got close to you and Sister Chen was to seduce you and cheat you of your feelings." Although his words were heartless, there was sadness hidden in his eyes. Yi Zissou shook her head, refusing to believe his words. "What you want to know, I've already told you. If you insist on seeking death, I won't stop you. But, for a dirty man like me, is it worth it?" He looked at her deeply, suddenly turned around, and walked away in large strides, ignoring her. Yi Zissou's tense body suddenly relaxed. She slumped onto the chair and the knife in her hand fell to the ground. She hugged her knees with both hands and curled up under the blanket. She cried silently. Even when she divorced Jiang Tianhao, she didn't feel so bad. After crying silently for a long time, she raised her head and wiped her tears. Her expression was firm. She didn't believe Xiao Han's words. He must have his reasons. She must find out the truth. When she woke up the next day, Xiao Han was no longer in the room. He left a post-it note on the table and wrote, "There's breakfast in the kitchen. Don't go hungry." He left the key on the coffee table when he left. That key was personally handed to her by Xiao Han when they were dating. Now that he wanted to go back, he really wanted to cut all ties with her. Yi Zissou crumpled the note into a ball. Her expression was frighteningly cold. Since they had started a relationship, it wasn't up to him to end it. She wouldn't give up. After breakfast, she did not give up and continued to search his room. She believed that no matter what difficulties he had, he would definitely have left behind some clues. In the end, she found a black notebook in the drawer of the desk. The first half of the notebook was filled with his schedule. There was nothing special about it. When she patiently flipped to the back, she saw more than 10 diary entries. "Today, Sister Chen said that she wanted to introduce her daughter to me. I met her, Zissou. She's as beautiful as an angel who barged into my life. I fell in love with her at first sight. I'm in a bad mood today because I heard that Zissou has a boyfriend and she loves him very much. Why did God let me meet the girl of my life, but let her fall in love with another man? I asked Sister Chen to go hiking. As expected, Sister Chen brought Zissou along. I was very happy, but I didn't dare to show it. I could only silently watch her from behind. Since she only treats me as an older brother, then I'll be her older brother. But why does my heart feel so bad?" Yi Zissou flipped through several diary entries. They were all related to her. Only then did she realize that Xiao Han had fallen in love with her a long time ago. He had always been silently watching her from behind. Even that time when she met him in the underground parking lot of Jiang Tianhao's company, he had done it on purpose. He comforted her when she was sad. He wiped away her tears when she cried. When she took revenge on Jiang Tianhao, he reached out to help her. When everyone scolded her for being shameless, he stood bravely by her side, He had done so much for her, but he had always kept it from her. She sniffled and her tears fell uncontrollably. Her tears turned the ink black. She quickly wiped the tears on the paper and continued reading. Couldn't fall asleep. My mind was filled with her. I wondered what she was doing now. I didn't dare to call her because she was already married to another man. Felt terrible and drank 2 glasses of wine. Sister Chen suddenly called. She said that she was drunk and was at a bar. She asked me to pick her up. When I arrived, Sister Chen was surrounded by a few men. I helped her out and wanted to send her home. She didn't want to go back. She said that she didn't want others to see her. I took her to my apartment. She was drunk and wanted to drink with me. I was also very bored, so I drank a few glasses with her. I didn't expect that after I got drunk, I would mistake her for Zissou. After I sobered up, I saw Sister Chen lying in my arms. I almost broke down. I didn't know what to do. Sister Chen said that we should treat it as if nothing had happened. Everything would go back to how it was before. I agreed, but I knew that we could never go back to how it was before. I was dirty. I didn't deserve the pure Zissou. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 892. I thought that night was just a nightmare, but I didn't expect Sister Chen to come looking for me again. She said she was very lonely and wanted someone to keep her company. She said she liked the young and energetic me. I wanted to reject her, but she threatened me and said she would tell Zissou about what happened that night. In the end, I compromised. I didn't want Zissou to know about my unbearable side, even though she didn't care about me at all. Zissou gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. She had never hated Chen Tingfang so much. How could her biological mother do such a despicable thing? I was forced again. I hated myself so much that I wanted to numb myself with alcohol. I didn't expect to meet Tang Feng and Zissou. Zissou was drunk and was held in Tang Feng's arms. I was jealous and snatched her away from him. She lay in my arms and cried. She cried that Jiang Tianhao cheated on her and betrayed her. She was the treasure in my heart, but she was ruined by another man. My heart was about to break. I was very conflicted. On one hand, I wanted to protect her and give her happiness. On the other hand, I felt that I was dirty and unworthy of her. I was conflicted and in pain. Until one day, I found out that Jiang Tianhao was using domestic violence against her. That was when I made up my mind to snatch her away. Since other men couldn't give her happiness, then I would give her happiness myself. I asked her to go to a concert. I was already prepared to propose to her, but Sister Chen contacted me again. I was afraid that she would tell Zissou about us, so I had no choice but to go. I had no choice but to lie to Zissou. When I saw her disappointed expression, I hated myself for being so powerless. This was the last entry in the diary. Zissou had already burst into tears when she read this. She clutched the notebook tightly in one hand and slammed her fist on the desk with the other. Each hit was heavier than the last. She didn't stop until the back of her hand was red and swollen. She tried to vent her emotions in this way, but it was useless. She was so miserable that she felt like dying. She no longer wanted to call that woman a mother. What kind of mother was she to a lover who forced her daughter to marry? Zissou waved her arms and pushed everything around her to the floor. Then, she only took a key and ran out of the room agitatedly. She wanted to go home immediately and confront Chen Tingfang face to face. Running to the underground parking lot, Zissou's head, which had been clouded by anger, slowly cleared up. She remembered that she should have brought the notebook with her. Otherwise, Chen Tingfang would definitely deny it. She turned around and went upstairs. When she returned to Shaoihan's apartment, the study room was in a mess. The notebook that she had thrown away earlier was nowhere to be found. Zissou couldn't find the notebook, so she copied the photos of the boat from Shaoihan's computer. At the Ji residence. Chen Tingfang was wearing sunglasses and lying on a hanging bed in the garden, comfortably sunbathing. When she heard footsteps, she opened her eyes and saw Yi Zhisu standing beside her. She said unhappily, "Mom, I have something to tell you." Chen Tingfang took off her sunglasses and looked at her curiously. "What's wrong? Who provoked you?" Yi Zhisu gritted her teeth and tried hard to control her emotions. She forced a smile. "Let's go back to the room and talk." The room was very quiet. The mother and daughter sat facing each other, and neither of them spoke first. After a while, Chen Tingfang's patience ran out. She frowned and said, "Zhisu, what's wrong with you today? If you have something to say it quickly." Yi Zhisu lowered her eyes and stared at the teacup in her hand to hide the deep anger in her eyes. She said softly, "Mom, I want to be with Xiaoyihan. What do you think?" "Xiaoyihan?" Chen Tingfang's voice suddenly rose, and she almost jumped up from the sofa. She immediately realized that she had overreacted, so she lowered her voice and said gently, "Zhisu, I thought you didn't like Xiaoyihan. Why did you suddenly mention him?" Yi Zhisu pursed her lips. "I think he's quite good. He's handsome, capable, and has a good personality. He doesn't mind that I was divorced before, and..." She paused and suddenly looked up. Her dark eyes stared straight at Chen Tingfang and she smiled. "And I like him." Chen Tingfang was shocked. The mother and daughter actually fell in love with the same man. Oh my God, just thinking about it made her feel ridiculous. Her nails dug deep into her palms. She forced herself to calm down and said slowly, "Zhisu, are you serious? You've fallen in love with Xiaoyihan?" Yi Zhisu's smile became brighter. She nodded and said sweetly, "Yes, Mom. Ihan likes me too. We're even planning to get married." "No, that's impossible. I mean, even if you two like each other, you should ask for the opinion of your family." Chen Tingfang's expression was extremely ugly. Her heart was in a mess. How could this be? Could it be that Ihan really fell in love with Zhisu? This thought was about to drive her crazy. She stood up and held her forehead with one hand. She said frantically, "I'm not feeling well. I'll go back to my room first. Let's talk about you and Xiaoyihan in 2 days." She walked to the door in a flustered and helpless manner. Yi Zhisu looked at her back and sneered. She said softly, "Mom, Ihan and I are truly in love. You'll definitely give us your blessings, right?" Chen Tingfang's body stiffened and she stopped in her tracks. Her throat was dry and uncomfortable. She wanted to say, yes, but her heart felt like it was being cut into pieces. She couldn't say it, so she ran out of the door in a flustered manner. "Humph, you're trying to steal your own daughter's man. You're really shameless." Yi Zhisu clenched her fist and held a USB drive in her palm. If Chen Tingfang wanted to fight to the end, she would no longer care about their mother-daughter relationship and fight to the death. In short, Xiaoyihan was hers. He was definitely hers. Chen Tingfang called Xiaoyihan's phone again and again, but all she got was, "The number you have dialed is switched off." She anxiously and angrily threw her phone on the floor. She paced around the room in frustration. What should she do? If Zhisu and Ihan were truly in love, should she give them her blessings? However, when she thought about how she could no longer have anything to do with Ihan, she felt so miserable that she wanted to cry. Ihan, Ihan. Where are you? Why aren't you picking up the phone?" Chen Tingfang had completely lost the rationality that a woman her age should have. She held a lady's cigarette between her fingers. As she smoked, she grabbed her hair in frustration. She looked like she had aged a few years in an instant. Before she knew it, the sky had turned dark. It was not until the servant knocked on the door and invited her downstairs for dinner that she snapped out of her daze. She said tiredly, "I'm not feeling well. I won't be going downstairs." She sighed deeply and opened the window to ventilate the room. She wanted to get rid of the smell of smoke as soon as possible. She said that she was not feeling well and that Ji Bowen would definitely come upstairs to see her later. Sure enough, as soon as she laid down in bed, Ji Bowen opened the door and came in. I heard that you're not feeling well. Do you want me to call the doctor? She coughed weakly. It's okay. I just have a slight cold. I'll be fine after a nap. Bowen, you can sleep in the guest room tonight. I'm worried that you'll be infected. Ji Bowen said, okay. I'll get the servants to make you a bowl of porridge. Okay, sorry to trouble you. Hurry down and eat. Don't let the children wait too long. Okay. Rest well. After the soft sound of the door closing, the room returned to a dead silence. Chen Tingfang's eyes welled up, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Ever since she got together with Ihan, her relationship with Ji Bowen had become even colder. Even if the two of them were lying on the same bed, they had never done anything like husband and wife. The phrase, bedfellows, was used to describe the two of them. She quickly wiped away her tears and picked up her phone. Unwilling to give up, she dialed Xiao Yihan's number again. She did not expect that the call would go through this time. The moment she heard Xiao Yihan's voice, her tears almost fell again. Her voice was thick and nasal as she asked anxiously, Han, where are you? I want to see you. Tingfang, I told my parents about us. I thought that they would support us, but I didn't expect them to send bodyguards to tie me up. His magnetic voice was filled with loneliness as he said, Tingfang, I told my parents about us. I thought that they would support us, but I didn't expect them to send bodyguards to tie me up. Chen Tingfang was so anxious that she stomped her feet. What? Why are you so silly? Your parents definitely won't agree to our relationship. How are you now? Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine. The bodyguards stole my phone. I stole it while they were asleep. Tingfang, they're going to bring me back to America tomorrow. However, I won't let them succeed. I'll definitely escape. Wait for my news. Ihan, you must be careful. Between you and Zissou. Beep beep. The call was suddenly cut off. Chen Tingfang called again, but the phone was turned off. She was in a terrible mood. The bodyguards must have woken up and realized that Xiao Yihan was on the phone, so they took his phone away again. She was so annoyed that she stomped her feet. She was so anxious, but there was nothing she could do to help Xiao Yihan. Chen Tingfang suffered for the whole night, waiting for Xiao Yihan's news. However, after that phone call, the two of them did not contact each other again. The next morning, she went downstairs for breakfast with 2 dark circles under her eyes. Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan had already finished eating and went to school. Ji Bowen had also gone to the office. Only Yi Zissou was left at the dining table. Yi Zissou looked up at her. Good morning, Mom. Good morning. Chen Tingfang felt guilty and did not dare to look into her eyes. She pulled out a chair and sat down. Yi Zissou took a sip of milk and laughed softly. Mom, did you not rest well last night? Is there something on your mind? No, I'm just a little uncomfortable. Is that so? I thought you were still thinking about me and Brother Ihan. Yi Zissou spread jam on the bread as she said, Oh, by the way, I mentioned Ihan and I to Uncle Ji last night. Uncle Ji said that as long as Ihan's character is good and trustworthy, he won't interfere with us. I just realized that Uncle Ji is actually a very good person. With that, she nodded affirmatively and asked with a smile, Mom, what do you think? Chen Tingfang smiled stiffly. Yes, you're right. Yi Zissou's smile faded and she said calmly, Mom, I hope you won't interfere with us. If you insist on interfering, I might do something bad. Chen Tingfang's expression changed and she stared at her in disbelief. What do you mean by that? Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 893. Yi Zissou said calmly, nothing much. I just want to protect my happiness. Mom, I call you Mom, and I hope you're worthy of this title. Isn't it your responsibility as a mother to make your daughter happy? Chen Tingfang's heart thumped wildly. She seemed to understand something from her daughter's indifferent expression. Her throat tightened and her voice was dry. Zissou, are you misunderstanding something? Yi Zissou looked at her coldly. You know very well whether it's a misunderstanding or not. You really disgust me. She deliberately emphasized the word disgust, like she was grinding it between her teeth. Chen Tingfang felt a chill all over her body. Yi Zissou used her fork to stab the strawberry jam spread on the bread. The red strawberry jam looked like fresh blood gushing out of her body. She glanced at Chen Tingfang provocatively from the corner of her eyes and threw the fork on the plate with a clang. She stood up arrogantly. I'm full. Enjoy your meal. What kind of attitude is that? Chen Tingfang pressed a hand to her chest. She was so angry that her liver hurt. Yi Zissou glanced at her disdainfully and sneered. She didn't want to argue with her anymore. On the way to school, Yi Zissou called Xiao Yihan. The phone rang for a long time, but no one picked up. She didn't give up and called again and again. Finally, Xiao Yihan's deep and hoarse voice came from the other end of the line. We're done. Yi Zissou gripped the steering wheel tightly and gritted her teeth. The things you said are nothing to me. Xiao Yihan, I don't mind. I just want to be with you. Before I say so, who allowed you to say so? The person on the other end of the line was silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed and said in an extremely bleak voice, I'm sorry. I can't accompany you anymore. I'm about to board the plane and fly to America. I'll never come back. Take care. As soon as he finished speaking, he hung up without waiting for her reply. Yi Zissou stared blankly at the road ahead. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. He was going back to America. Never to return. What about her? She slammed on the brakes and stopped the car by the side of the road. She frantically dialed his number. The cold female voice on the other end of the phone reminded her that the other party had turned off the phone. Yi Zissou angrily punched the steering wheel and kicked the car. He clearly loved her. Why did he have to leave? Why? She suddenly thought of someone. Chen Tingfang. It was her. She must be the one who threatened Yihan. In a fit of rage, she threw all thoughts of school and classes to the back of her mind. She turned the car around and slammed on the accelerator, heading back to the Ji residence. Chen Tingfang finished her breakfast and faced the empty room unhappily. She couldn't wait for Xiao Yihan's news and was very anxious. She didn't know if he had successfully escaped. The door was suddenly slammed open. Chen Tingfang was shocked. She quickly looked up and saw Yi Zissou standing at the door with a livid face. Her eyes, which were similar to hers, were filled with resentment. Chen Tingfang felt Yihan's heart when she saw her venomous glare. She immediately stood up and asked with concern, Zissou, why are you back? Yi Zissou clenched her teeth and stared at the woman who gave birth to her. She walked towards her step by step and finally stopped 3 steps away. She squeezed a few words out of her teeth. Yihan is going back to America. Did you force him? Chen Tingfang's eyes widened. She quickly reacted and forced a smile. His parents are in America. It's only right for him to go back. What does it have to do with me? Don't pretend anymore. Yi Zissou broke down emotionally and shouted hysterically, I know. I know everything. It's about you and him. You must have forced him to leave. We were so in love. Why did you have to interfere? Tell me. Chen Tingfang's face was pale. Her fingers trembled slightly. She turned her face slightly and pursed her lips. She didn't know what to say. Yi Zissou threw herself at her. She grabbed her arm and shook it vigorously. She cried and screamed, Give him back to me. Hurry up and give him back to me. Zissou, calm down. I really didn't force him to leave. When Chen Tingfang saw her daughter's grief-stricken appearance, she didn't feel good either. She tried to persuade her, but her daughter didn't appreciate it. She raised her tear-stained face and questioned sternly, "If you didn't force him, why did he leave? He said that he loved me and wanted to marry me. If you didn't interfere, we would have been married." Chen Tingfang's head was spinning from Yi Zisu's shaking, and her ears were suffering from the noise. In a moment of frustration, she wanted to push Yi Zisu away, but Yi Zisu held on tightly. She didn't know why, but she raised her hand and slapped Yi Zisu. Following that, she shouted angrily, "Enough, stop making noise." Chen Tingfang suddenly flipped out. Yi Zisu was shocked and let go of her shoulder. She sighed and said earnestly, "Zisu, do you really think that everything is Mom's fault? If it's not your fault, then is it my fault? He's about to propose to me. I really love him." Yi Zisu's tears flowed down again as she thought of the sad part. "Mom, if you still treat me as your daughter, then call him back. I can't leave him." Chen Tingfang had a headache and her eyes flickered. "How many times do I have to say it before you understand? I really didn't ask him to leave." She found it hard to explain the real reason Xiao Yihan left. Yi Zisu didn't let it go. Then why did he leave? Chen Tingfang flew into a rage out of humiliation and said angrily, "That's enough. I said I don't know, so I don't know. Even if you ask me 100 times or 1,000 times, I still don't know." Yi Zisu stared at her as if she was looking at a stranger for a long time. Suddenly, she laughed out loud. Her laughter was strange and eerie, and her eyes flashed with a wild light. Her lips parted slightly, like a venomous snake, and she said eerily, "Chen Tingfang, from today onwards, we're no longer mother and daughter. In the future, I don't have a shameless mother like you anymore." Every word that came out of her mouth was like a sharp arrow that fiercely pierced Chen Tingfang's chest. She clenched her fists tightly and her voice was sharp because of urgency and anger. "You're crazy. I'll give you one more chance. Take back what you just said." Yi Zisu sneered. "Words that have been spoken are like spilled water. They can't be taken back." "Humph, I don't want to be your daughter anymore." Chen Tingfang's face was as pale as a sheet. Her voice trembled as she said, "Are you really going to abandon our mother-daughter relationship for a man?" "That's right." Yi Zisu was 2 centimeters taller than Chen Tingfang. She lifted her chin slightly and stared disdainfully at Chen Tingfang. She said coldly, "You're even stealing your daughter's man. What kind of mother are you?" After saying those words, she didn't bother to look at Chen Tingfang anymore. She turned around arrogantly and left, leaving Chen Tingfang standing there like a soulless puppet. The man she loved the most had left her hometown and would never come back because of her mother. That kind of heart-wrenching pain made Yi Zisu feel almost hopeless. She had been sitting in front of the bay window for the whole morning. She called Xiao Yihan's phone countless times, but it was always turned off. In the end, she stiffly sent a text message. "Yihan, I really love you. Just take it as me begging you. Come back, okay? If you don't want to come back, tell me your address. I'll go find you. I miss you so much. I really miss you." After waiting for the whole afternoon and then the whole night, she finally received a call from an unknown number in the wee hours of the morning. It was Xiao Yihan's voice. "Zisu, I've arrived in America." Yi Zisu excitedly got up and said anxiously, "Han, did you see my text message? If you don't want to come back, I'll go to America to find you. Can you tell me your address?" The sound of heavy traffic could be heard on the other end of the phone. She could tell that he was driving. "Have you really thought it through? Give up everything in China and come to America?" "I've thought it through. As long as I can be with you, I don't mind anywhere. Yihan, I miss you so much." "I miss you too, baby." His voice was much gentler. "It's early in the morning in China. Did I disturb your rest?" "No, no. Actually, I've been waiting for your news." Yi Zisu's heart was filled with sweetness as if she had eaten honey. After acting coquettishly for a while, she said, Han, quickly tell me your address. I'll get a visa as soon as possible and come find you. His voice was unbelievably gentle. Okay, my address is... A loud bang interrupted his voice. Yizisu heard the loud bang from the phone and her heart almost stopped. Her voice trembled as she called out, Ihan, what's wrong? Ihan? There was no response. Ihan. Ihan. Yizisu screamed at the top of her lungs. Each scream was more mournful than the last. She realized that something bad had happened and a huge panic engulfed her. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Ihan, hurry up and answer me. Nothing can happen to you. Nothing can happen to you. After a long, long time, almost as long as a century, Yizisu finally heard Xiao Ihan's weak voice intermittently. Cough cough. Zisu. I'm sorry. I love you. The deathly silence returned to her ears. Yizisu felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. She was so cold that her body kept trembling. She kept muttering, nothing will happen to you, Han. Nothing will happen to you. Wait for me to go to America to find you. I'll go to America to find you immediately. The sound of police cars and ambulances could be heard from the phone. A man said in fluent English, hello. This gentleman has been in a car accident. We're trying to resuscitate him. Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. This gentleman's heart has stopped because of excessive blood loss. The phone landed heavily on the floor. Yizisu did not hear what the man said at all. There were only a few words lingering in her mind. His heart has stopped. She hugged her head and cried in the wind. No. Her miserable cries were particularly clear in the silent night. Even though the villa's soundproofing was good, her sorrowful cries could still be heard in other rooms. Ji Yuchi was in a deep sleep. When she heard the cries in a daze, she turned over and continued to sleep soundly. Ji Yunhan was woken up. He scratched his hair in frustration and covered his head with the quilt. Chen Tingfang hesitated for a while. She put on a jacket and walked to Yizisu's room. She gently knocked on the door. Zisu, are you okay? Welfare, Songshu 566. You're tuning into the A Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.